We had no idea, really, that anything was out of the ordinary at all until our nuts disappeared.
Mind-expanding sundown sporting discourse for witches, kebab van owners...
You want some chilli sauce with that?
...and washed-up burglars too fat to fit through your cat flap.
You great fat thieving lumper lad!
Cult listening worth staying awake for. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll read that again. Oh no, I was right the first time. The Two Mics on Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
And, sorry, is that the chocolate speaking?
No, it's not the chocolate speaking.
Well,
it's somebody who's looking at the picture.
Oh, I see.
I'm not getting a tweet from a bar of chocolate.
No, but I thought
Why
you
would the chocolate be speaking?
I thought she was trying to be clever and say, this is, you know, Porky staring at me, I'm the chocolate, you know what I mean? I thought it was being like a clever take on it.
No, about herself. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Well, I'm very lucky to be here.
Are you?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Do you know what's just happened?
What's
just
just
as you came
happened?
in the studio?
No.
That out of control maniac.
Which one?
Cundy.
Jason Cundy?
Yeah. He's coming out of the spare studio where
Yeah.
they'd just gone to polish something off, you know,
Yes.
at the end of their show.
Uh-huh.
And he whips the door open as
Yeah.
I'm passing so violently,
Yeah.
I think I may have broken my arm.
What, you hit your arm with it? What were you doing
it's
over
broken
there?
skin, look.
Oh, dear. What were you doing
See?
over there?
What was I doing over there?
Yeah.
I was getting all my
It's
stuff.
nowhere near this studio.
It doesn't matter, I was getting my headphones, wasn't I? Because I
okay.
keep them in special places
All right.
so other people can't steal them.
Well,
and
you've got to be
use them.
more careful.
I've got to be more careful. He should be more careful, rampaging around like a bull in a china shop.
Oh, dear.
I've got a very distinctive bruise on my
Have
arm.
you?
A lump is coming up. I fear that I may have a hairline fracture in
Right.
the...
Would you like to take yourself off to the local
what
hospital?
is this called, by the way? This isn't the femur, is it?
No, the femur's in your leg,
Femur's
isn't
in
it?
your leg, but
Yeah.
it's the equivalent bone in your arm.
Well, it's
whatever
your
that's
forearm,
called.
isn't it?
Yeah, isn't this called the aurolus or something?
Aurolus?
It's something like that.
I don't think so.
It is.
I don't know.
It is. I'm going to find out what the name of this bone's called, then I'm going to get on to
He's in there laughing, look.
What?
He's in there laughing.
Yeah,
He's-
well, he
he's,
would be, wouldn't he? You know, that, cream-faced loon. It was a quite deliberate attack because...
An attack?
Well, there's
That's what
a
you're calling it.
window in those doors. You can see if anybody's passing, and all
But
of a
somebody
sudden...
may have been in the blind spot.
He put his shoulder to it, and bang, it opened like that. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm suffering. I'm starting to feel
Was it like some painkillers?
I'm starting to feel a bit violently sick.
Are you?
That's the first sign
well, I
of
started
trauma.
feeling a bit like that when I saw you turning up in the shorts earlier on, to be
First
honest.
sign of trauma.
What the hell are you doing wearing a pair of shorts?
Well, if you know what the temperature was today,
Well, it was about 20 something, wasn't it?
it was up
22?
to 90 degrees, somebody told me.
90?
Yeah.
What, Fahrenheit?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It was not. It was about 25,
Well,
26.
somebody told me, and I felt
Who
that...
told you?
Hey?
Who told you?
So, I don't know, somebody in...
Somebody who uses Fahrenheit rather than centigrade.
Yeah, probably. And I felt that it was time... You have to... you see, it's all about the how do you feel in the workplace, all that kind of stuff. Now, you will feel...
It's nice and cool in here tonight.
Nice and cool because I've had the studios regulated
Have you?
by temperature. I saw the engineers when we came in earlier tonight, and I've had them regulated, which is good.
Uh-huh.
But you, in your travel to and from work, will feel a lot more uncomfortable than I do.
Why?
Well, because when you sit in what I would call the ergonomically designed seat that we have in the Mercedes sports cars, okay?
You haven't got a sports car.
That wrap
You haven't
themselves...
got a Mercedes sports car.
I have a two-door,
You
3.5 litre,
No, you have a Mercedes,
fastback Mercedes
you have a
Sport.
Mercedes E-Class
Yeah.
car. It's not a sports car.
No, it's a special brand.
No, it's
brand.
not. What does it say on the back?
It's got two doors,
What does it
right?
say on the back?
Sports cars have two doors.
What does it say on the back?
It says Mercedes,
No,
right?
No, it doesn't
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
What does it
yeah.
say on the back on the left-hand side?
I've
where
no
E
idea
something?
because I do not look at
It
what
says like
they...
E350 or something, doesn't it?
Well,
Well, you don't look at it.
It indicates it's got a very big engine, and powerful
E350.
engine.
E350
Anyway,
is what it
excuse
says.
me. My seats are ergonomically designed
Really?
to wrap themselves around you to
Well,
keep you the safest
do you
possible
think,
place
do you
in
think
the car.
seats are better in your car, which is now so out of date that nobody would want to buy it, or in the car of the year? Which car seats do you think are better?
My seats are better for the model in which I'm in. And
Well, they might be better for you.
And they're the most modern seats in the world.
No, I don't think
And,
so. They're not the most modern seats in the world. Your car did not win car of the year.
And what I'm saying, my next one will. And what I'm saying is that I felt so comfortable within the space within my car, within what I call my cockpit, much more comfortable than you will have done.
No, not
because
really.
you had too many clothes on, and the pores in your skin were not able to aerate the way
Incorrect.
mine were.
Well, first of all, I have a much shorter journey than you, so I don't have to worry too much about whether I'm comfortable in the car or not. As I pointed out to you, it is in fact the car of the year, so it is very well designed and very, very nice to sit in. It's also very high and much more comfortable seating position.
Yeah.
than to be seated sort of on the ground like you are. But anyway, more important than that.
But you have to have
more important than that.
Big tough suspension because you're a big fat git.
Yeah, well, I'm not a big fat git, actually. We all know who's the big fat git here, and we've all seen the picture when it was reflected in that picture that you took once by mistake. Yeah, we can put that out again if you like.
Excuse me, did you or did you not confess to me last week that you have put weight on?
I have put weight on because I stopped smoking.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So I will repeat the question. Yeah. Who is the big fat get in this
you are. Do you want me to
studio?
put out that picture that you sent out before by mistake?
What picture?
The one which you were reflected in when you took a picture of some photograph in your house, and then you couldn't understand why everyone was laughing at it.
Doesn't bother me.
Okay, we'll put that one out again, because that's the only picture we have that shows who the big fat git is.
I mean, what is the point of putting that out? To bore the audience to death? Have you got no new ideas?
You're the one that
brought
up...
new ideas.
I've got loads of new ideas, but you're the one that brought up that I was a big fat git.
Well,
we have pictorial evidence that shows that you are.
No, not at all.
Anyway, my point is, why are you wearing shorts? You have previously said in another incarnation of yours, when your personality was slightly less objectionable, that people who wear shorts to the office should be banned from wearing them.
No, I said that during daytime. It's not daytime at the moment.
So nighttime it's all right?
Nighttime it's okay.
Okay, so it's the usual hypocrisy.
No hypocrisy here. No hypocrisy here at all.
Well, we've got lots and lots of people seeing a picture that I put out earlier on.
Is it called the ulna?
The ulna?
Yeah, is the bone in your arm called the ulna?
Isn't it like the fibia or the tibia or something like that?
No, that's in your leg as well.
Hey?
That's in your leg as well.
All right.
But anyway, it's very unsettling to have to endure that sort of trauma shock just before, starting work.
Well, I hope you're not in any pain, but if you are in any pain, I've got plenty of painkillers should you wish to avail yourself of them.
Yes.
I'll be happy to pass them on.
Yes.
How about this from Stuart, who's seen the picture of you in your shorts? He says he legitimately looks like a postman.
Well, I've got nothing against postmen. I think postmen are good people.
Yeah.
So I take that as a compliment. Thank you very much indeed.
Mick says, I've seen better legs on a coffee table.
Really? Yeah.
Peter
Okay. Well,
says,
I'm not in a beautiful long-legged look at my calf type competition.
Beautiful long-legged look at my calf type competition.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you are. Are they the famous Velcro trainers? Is asked Peter.
No Velcro in them, mate.
Arctic Eddie says, are they schoolboy plimsolls that you're wearing?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And let's see. Here's one from Tracy, who was talking earlier about what you said to me when we were talking to Andy and Jason.
Yes.
Shocking of Mike Parry telling you to shut it.
Yes.
The car park beckons.
Yeah.
Shock turned to tears of laughter.
I tell you what, a chap called Ben has sent me a picture of a really fat get, and I have to say it's a fabulous picture of some bloke waddling around in a sort of. Have you seen it? In a sort of.
I haven't.
Pink and. I've lost it now. I had it a minute ago. Pink and white suit.
No, really?
Anyway.
I've not seen it. I saw a very large man today, though. I was driving around. I was taking my daughter somewhere and sitting, because as they do, people tend to sit outside in the heat. Yeah. This guy was sitting outside on a wall, which was quite low down, but he was absolutely gargantuan.
Yes.
And unfortunately, he was wearing no shirt.
Oh, dear.
Because it was so hot. And it was really quite a disgusting sight.
Yeah, this is a picture of this guy. Look.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's horrendous.
Yeah,
he looks like Humpty Dumpty,
that is
this guy.
Well, the guy that I saw
was some sort of charity walk.
Was even larger than that.
Really, yeah.
And he was sitting on a wall. And he was actually eating as well.
Yeah.
But he was so gross without a shirt on.
Yes.
I nearly crashed the car.
Oh, God, I couldn't stand it. Now, Kim here says, Porky, don't worry what anybody else is saying. You've totally nailed that effortless, casual, chic look, Porky. That's from Kim. Kim, thank you very much indeed.
Yes. Now, Scott says Cundy's getting sued tomorrow by Porky's lawyer.
Yeah.
Which is entirely possible.
Oh, that is entirely possible.
That could happen.
There'll be a
safety.
There'll be a damage assessment after the show. Immediately after the show, because I'm not going to let this rest, and I will report back.
And Scott says Romanu's close to being sick a few minutes ago. Porky's made a very speedy recovery.
Well, I've got great what's the word I'm looking for? I have great virtue and great
powers of recovery.
Fortitude. Great fortitude.
Yeah, fortitude. Yeah. Speaking of which, we will be doing. Porkyvision coming up a little bit later on today.
Yes.
We're also talking to Sandra Lee down in Australia about the problem with koalas.
Yes.
They may be becoming extinct. I'm correct, by the way. They're not called koala bears in Australia. They're called koalas.
Yeah.
Just so that you have that for future reference.
Yeah.
And we'll be looking at...
needed to know that.
And we'll also... Well, it's good to be correct in these things. And we'll also have a look at all the front pages and all the latest developments in this situation with the Manchester bomber as well.
Yeah.
But we're also going to be talking to Mark Bosnich about Manchester United. You said earlier Jose Mourinho may have won the most important game of his life. I think you may well be right. I think we should talk about that as well.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of stick from people who are saying, how on earth could you even possibly have thought that Ajax had a chance? MG, I'm delighted to say that your worry about Ajax didn't happen.
Yeah.
Ajax didn't turn up. You said they would.
I didn't say they would turn up. I just said I was worried that Manchester United haven't been playing that brilliantly. You were the one that told me that these were the new, young, up-and-coming team of Europe. And you said that they were one of the brightest prospects that we've ever seen in football.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the sort of old... famous heads that they've got looking after them.
Yes,
but it didn't work out that way. But Manchester United won, which is good news for English football. You'd have to say. Yes. We'll talk about that coming up next on TalkSport.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mikes. Lots going on, including, of course, last night's victory. It was live on TalkSport between Ajax and Manchester United.
Yes, well done, Manchester United.
Well done, Manchester United. Well done, Jose Mourinho. As you said, he looks happier now than he's looked all season.
You saw him smiling after the game, waving that trophy around, all that, and that cracked his face because I haven't seen him like that since Christmas. You know, he's looked troubled, concerned, deep in thought. Remiss at the string of home draws he's had at Old Trafford.
He's been very touchy.
Yeah, absolutely, walking out on interviews and all that kind of stuff. But the old Jose seemed to come back a bit tonight.
Now, we've already got a tweet here from the UEFA Europa League saying Jose Mourinho becomes only the third coach to win a major European trophy with 3 different clubs.
Yes.
Which is pretty good going, isn't it?
Of course it is, but I mean, he would want to extend that to the only coach in the world ever to win 3 Champions League trophies with 3 different clubs.
Of course.
He's got 2 at the moment, doesn't he?
He has,
he's also the first Inter Milan.
He's also the first Manchester United manager in history to win 2 major trophies in his first season in charge.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Which is pretty good going too.
Well, Sir Alex Ferguson went 5 years.
Yeah.
And, that was the great story about the early years of Sir Alex Ferguson. How long was he going to stay before he got booted out?
Yes.
No, indeed. Now then, it says here, MG, you should know better. You should know better. That's just left somewhere.
I've got that one here. Now then, MG says you should know better than to question Porky.
Everything Porky has is bound to be special.
Yeah.
Somebody's taking the mickey.
Speaking of which, I see you were spotted by one of your fans earlier on in the day in the very, very high-class and upmarket Morrison's.
Sorry,
Sorry,
are you taking the mickey out of our millions of listeners?
I'm taking the mickey out of
Morrison's.
Morrison's.
Proportion of who shop in Morrison's?
Yes, I am.
So you're saying Morrison's is for peasants?
I'm saying Morrison's is the worst of many of the supermarkets you could go to.
Right. So you don't want anybody who shops in Morrison's to be listening to us
That's
anymore.
not what I said.
Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I said.
Where do you shop then?
Waitrose.
Waitrose. Yeah. Why do you shop in Waitrose?
Because I like their stuff.
Yeah, you like their stuff. Yeah, and it just happens to be sort of close to you. So
no, I get it delivered actually.
Because you're idle.
No, I get it delivered.
Even more idle.
No, I get it delivered. There is a Waitrose actually down in Greenwich, which is just opened, which I do go to.
Yeah, I think.
But I've also just become the proud owner of one of those little key fobs.
Yeah.
You know those things that you can swipe when you buy stuff. No. You don't know anything about this, do you? Well, I've got one from Tesco's, right? Because I used to shop at Tesco's more than I shopped anywhere else.
Yes.
And when you shop there, you get points.
Right.
Right. And when you accrue enough points, you can either translate them into money, or you can translate them into gifts, or you can translate them into money off various things that you might want to buy.
Right.
And so Sainsbury's have the same.
Okay.
Morrison's probably have one as well. But they give you a little sort of key ring to put on your key.
Yes.
So that when you pay for your goods at the end by the till, you swipe the barcode, and it adds onto your accruing of points.
I shop at Morrison's because it is one of the supermarkets of the people, and I believe I should be amongst them. But anyway, I was in there today, and a chap came up to me, very nice chap.
Which one was it?
Just call it in Stockbroker Belt, okay? That's all you need to know.
Well, he can tell me where it was if you like.
No,
because he tweeted out that he met you with his daughter.
That's fine. And we didn't name his little girl. She's a lovely little girl, and he came up to me and. The poor chap had done exactly what I normally do. I only ever go in to get 4 things.
What did you get?
But then you get 12, right? And then your hands are full, and I start putting them in my pocket.
It says Morrison Sutton here.
Does it?
Yeah.
Well, I can't comment on that. I'm sorry.
And it's from somebody called at Rio Megan.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. So anyway,
so you were in Sutton again. What a coincidence.
Well, I'm often in Sutton. I have property interests in Sutton.
Well, I thought you lived there.
No, I used to live there.
Yeah, I know.
And what happened was, he came over and said hello and shook hands, which was very nice of him.
Yeah.
And then it became clear that we should do a picture. And he held all his goods in one hand, like a balancing act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got his phone out with the other, and with one hand managed to set the phone up and said, "Oh, can I have a picture taken with my little girl?" I said, "Of course." And it was all very nice, and what a nice family they are. So thank you very much indeed for saying hello.
Yes,
good to see you.
There were lots of people giving some interesting views on your shirt that you were wearing. So you look like a tramp. Because, I mean, you're wearing what could be described as a sort of a checked shirt in this picture.
Well, it was my daytime shirt today.
Your daytime
It's not the
shirt
shirt I've got on now, because I'm now wearing my nighttime shirt, so I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Some people have been very cruel.
Really? What have they said?
BMW said, look, Porky didn't even have to kneel down.
I did kneel down because the little girl was only about 6 or 7.
Kirk's asking whether you were in the bakery for a lean ham baguette.
Funny enough, I did buy some baguettes because they cook their own in Morrison's. That's one of the reasons why I go there.
They cook their own?
Yeah, and they cook their own croissants and all that kind of stuff.
Dave says, keep away from that Battenberg Porky. Think about your godlike physique.
Well, I did indeed. Now, listen, talking about
Chris
food...
says, I didn't know you were that short. Craig says, I bet she didn't know who you were. Did she ask you to bring us something for Christmas?
No, not at all.
Santa.
No, not at all. But, I'm a great admirer of the family unit, so I had no problem there at all.
And a couple of people saying, I thought you lived in Epsom.
I live in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, but I have property interests around Surrey, and therefore I'm often visiting different towns.
Quite often in Sutton, though, aren't you?
Yeah, quite often, because, as I say, I used to live there, and I bought a lot of property there. It just sort of accumulated. But anyway, there you go.
How much property you got in Sutton?
Enough to keep me busy,
really?
And that's why I go there, you know?
Okay.
Now then, I've got some good news for you.
Have you?
You are eating a chocolate bar.
Well, I was eating one earlier.
I think you're eating it as the show goes on. You sounded like you were eating something the last time you addressed the microphone, put it that way.
Well, I mean, I've got a cup of tea here.
Yeah, right, okay.
So occasionally what I will do is have a bite of a piece of chocolate.
Yeah, okay.
Just to keep my energy levels up.
Yeah, well, you see, I never eat anywhere near doing a show because you don't understand mastication principles of the saliva glands in your mouth.
Yeah.
You don't understand the breathing principles of your esophagus in relation to your lungs and your solar plexus.
Well, what are you going to tell me about
all these things contribute to the fact that, you shouldn't under any circumstances eat anything 2 hours before you...
2 hours before?
You come into a studio.
Really?
And never eat... always wait more than an hour after the show so that your digestive processes are allowed to start up again.
Well, except, as per usual, you talk a good game, but I'd have to say I have seen you eating chocolate bars before the show many times.
No.
Yeah, I have.
No, you haven't. When was the last time?
Yesterday.
Rubbish. Now then,
yesterday? What do you mean rubbish?
Now then, but I've got good news for you.
What's the good news?
We can all now eat up to 6 bars of chocolate a week and reduce the potential of fatal heart conditions. Okay?
Really?
Yeah, I'm not joking.
Well, chocolate is very good for you.
Eating up to 6 bars of chocolate a week could reduce the risk of a potentially fatal heart condition by 1/4. And this study, by the way,
it's been done by Cadbury's.
No, it's been done by Harvard University.
Really?
Research on more than 50,000 people found strong links between regularly eating the treat, as they call it, and a reduced risk of suffering a heart flutter. Too late for me, but don't worry, I'll take the pain for the rest of you.
What do you mean it's too late for you?
Well, my heart's already
gone. I thought
gone.
your heart was repairing. No, it's not already gone. No, you're wrong to say that because, as we know, Dr. Banner has said to you that actually it's gone from being 33% effective to being 49% effective.
No, only 1/3 of my heart works.
No, 49% of it works.
However, I do regularly send Dr. Banner pieces I see in research manuals which say that, there's this new patch you can stick onto the side of your heart made from stem cells, which could make my heart perfect again. So I'm working on that one at the moment.
Right.
But anyway, it says here, the strongest association was found amongst men eating between 2 and 6 portions of chocolate a week, with a portion classified as a small bar.
Yeah.
Those doing so had a 23% lower risk of developing atrial fibrillation.
Right. Well, it's all very well, though, saying you can eat lots of chocolate bars, but, I mean, the different sizes of chocolate bars nowadays.
Yes.
You can end up eating an awful lot of chocolate if you buy those big ones. Like, for example, it's very hard now just to buy a small chocolate bar.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
You go to a place and they want to sell you 2 for 1. They want to give you a duo Mars bar, 2 instead of 1.
Do you remember that great advertising slogan? A finger of fudge is all you need to give your kids a treat.
Wasn't it a finger of fudge is just enough?
A finger of fudge is just enough to make your children eat their meat, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything to do with eating your meat.
No, but anyway, listen, back on to this research document. Yeah. Now then, the other guy...
passed this on to Dr. Banner, this one?
No, not this one.
No.
But I haven't had a chance yet.
Okay.
But anyway, another guy involved in this comes from the University of Essex.
Yes.
His name is Dr. Gavin Sandercock, who is a reader in clinical physiology.
Is he? Mm-hmm. Dr. Sandercock.
Yes, Dr. Sandercock, that's right, yeah.
Keep it up, Doctor.
See, now, can't you take these things seriously?
I've tried.
At the University of Essex, he said the group eating the least chocolate, less than 1 portion a month, were far less healthy than all the others, making comparisons misleading.
Right.
They had the highest blood pressure. They're most likely to have hypertension, which comes from, like, being...
Have you ever had that?
No.
I've never had that.
That's a nervous disposition type thing.
Yeah.
I don't get nervously dispositioned. Most likely to have high cholesterol and were twice as likely to already have heart disease anyway.
Yes.
So it says here, they were fatter than all the other groups despite eating the least calories overall. In short, they were the unhealthiest group in the whole study, which means that almost any other group will seem healthier than them.
Well, that's
what
the problem.
it's saying is, the more chocolate you eat, the healthier you get.
Yeah, but you see, again, the trouble is, it's difficult to know who they've studied and under what circumstances these people eat chocolate.
Well, we'd have to go and talk to old Sandercock.
We'd have to
find
talk
out
to
what
Sandercock.
his
Maybe we should get him on.
says, yeah.
Maybe we should get him on.
Yeah.
How about this one from Adrian, who says, didn't you guys have an argument a few weeks ago because Porky didn't buy you a chocolate bar just before the show? Hashtag new pound coin debacle. I think he's right,
yes,
because you couldn't get your new pound coin into the machine, could you?
When did you last buy me a chocolate bar?
I don't know if I've ever bought you a chocolate bar.
Precisely.
You know?
Precisely. So you don't get any more from me now, I've decided.
Well, I mean,
you're just not getting them.
No, hang on. You buy them for me because you go upstairs and you put money in the machine and you get one for yourself and you very kindly occasionally get one for me.
Occasionally, always.
Not
if
always.
I get one, I always get you one.
No, not always.
That's the sort of team player I am.
When was the last time you bought me a bar of chocolate?
Today.
Today?
Yes.
Well, you're saying you bought me this one?
I bought you that one.
Oh, I thought somebody else bought me that.
No, I bought you that one.
Oh, okay, thank you very much.
And I'm going to put the picture out now to shame you.
No, well, why is it shaming me?
It's shaming you because I'm going to make it clear that this is the last one you're ever going to get from me. Okay?
Oh, okay. How about this from Andrew in Bournemouth? He says, what an absolute and total wally Porky is. Ever since a listener informed him that Sutton is not Stockbroker Belt, all of a sudden he doesn't live there and tries not to mention the place now. And then he says, and I can't say the word because it's a family show, but I'm just going to say, what an idiot.
That is ridiculous.
It's true.
Utterly ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah.
How crazy is that, eh?
Here's one from Andy who says, how good is this? United win and you two madheads are on the radio. Mike Parry should shop at Aldi, he says.
At Aldi?
Yeah.
I don't like Aldi.
Don't you?
No, I'm sorry,
Why
I shouldn't
not?
say that. That's being unfair to...
He's snobbish about it.
To hit a brand like that. What I'm saying is the circumstances in... the traditional supermarkets suit me better. Aldi is a different form of shopping.
It is.
I'm not having a go at their products.
It's quite often difficult to find stuff in Aldi's.
I'm not having a go at their products or anything like that. And they're a very successful business. I have to say, somebody from Germany has come over here and set them up, and they are very successful. But shopping is a culture, and that's why some people go to Waitrose because they like the style of Waitrose. Yeah. Now, Aldi, on a couple of occasions I've been there, nothing about their goods or their products, but when I've got to the old till in Aldi's, I mean, you are actively encouraged to get a move on, pal, as you go through the tills.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Oh, you are, yeah.
And not only that, but it's no good asking the lady behind can I have some bags, please? She says, the bags are there.
Bags are there, you've got to get your own.
And you have to get your own.
But I would thought you'd quite like that. It's quite super efficient.
Well, I don't mind it at all, but the problem that it seems to me is that, you really are pushed through at a hell of a speed, and if you want a bit of time to reflect on things, you don't always get it. But look, I'm not knocking it. That's one form of shopping, and it's been very successful in this country.
Do they have them in Stockbroker Belt, sorry, Aldi?
I've got a new one opened, I think I've told you, down in Gosport.
Yes, well, I mean, you would expect one down there.
200 or 300 yards away.
Yeah. Have you used that one?
Yes, I have, yes.
Right.
Yes, I have used that one. And by the way, you can buy all sorts of things in there. Furniture.
Really?
Yeah.
Furniture?
Bags of fertiliser.
Wow.
If you wanted them.
Wow.
I don't need one because I'm only...
you haven't got a garden?
Well, I haven't got one down on the coast.
Well, you haven't got one anywhere.
Yes, I have.
You haven't got a garden.
I have a roof garden.
No, you haven't got a garden. It's a very small piece of pavement,
no good arguing.
which has got some plant pots in it.
No good arguing.
That's not a garden.
What do you mean?
Well, it's just not a garden. Garden has grass in it.
Yeah.
Yours doesn't have any grass.
It has plants.
That means it's not a garden.
It is a garden.
How about this for a question from CLC? At what time does a daytime shirt turn into a nighttime shirt? I'm just curious.
I would say about 5 o'clock.
5 p.m?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
All year round?
No, because in the winter it gets cold at 5, so you wouldn't put a shirt on, you'd put a jumper on or something like that. I haven't got any jumpers, so I wouldn't put a jumper on, no.
Okay.
Okay?
This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful night, gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, gotta shake it for me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, everybody can see. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, go ahead and release.
This is Talk Sport, we are the two Mikes. Porkyvision makes a return later on tonight, and of course tomorrow it's Porky Quiz time, and the Porky Quiz on Sir Roger Moore, who passed away just the other day. We spoke about that yesterday. Yeah, and
Sandra Lee's doing a lot of research on that.
Have you? Oh, good. Well, I mean, the independent quizmasters are putting the questions together as we speak. Kev says this: it's 6 portions of 70% plus cocoa chocolate, not full bars, but 6 squares of chocolate.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're over-egging the pudding here?
No, I'm not over-egging the pudding. It's a small bar.
Well, he's saying he's read the thing, and it's 6 squares of chocolate, not 6 bars of chocolate.
I didn't... No. 6 squares of chocolate 6 times a week is okay.
So that is 6 bars, then, isn't it?
Yeah, of course
it is.
So
you were right the first time.
Yeah, I was. I was right the first time.
He's saying it's only 6 portions rather than 6 squares.
No. You read it properly.
All
What's this guy's name?
His name's Kev.
Well, Kev, you've got to get your act together, pal, and unscrabble your brain.
Okay.
It says here... men eating between 2 and 6 portions of chocolate a week, with a portion classified as 30 grams, which constitutes a small bar.
Right.
So it can be 6 small bars of chocolate, OK?
Well, if I look at this bar here that you very generously bought me,
yes.
I'm not going to give the name out, but how many grams is this then, would you say?
Well, that would be about 50 grams.
I'm seeing what it says.
Yeah.
It should be more than 50, shouldn't it?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
No. What does it say?
I can't see.
Well, you say you're an idiot. You can't even interpret the writing on the back of a bar of chocolate.
Well, what it's got is a
kind of a half-bake, are you?
Well, it's got 19 grams of sugar, 12 grams of fat, so I'm pretty sure it's more than 50 grams of chocolate.
So that's 30 grams altogether.
36 grams, there you go.
36 grams, there you go.
Yeah.
See? So that's one portion.
So you're saying that's one portion. So I could have one of these a day?
Yes, you could,
for 6 times a week?
Yes, you could.
I don't think that'd be very good for you.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you,
it might stop you having a heart attack, but you'd end up being as fat as a house, wouldn't you?
No, not at all.
Donald says it's a small piece of dark chocolate.
It doesn't say dark anywhere, so don't get involved in that sort of stuff, OK?
All right. And Chris says, given Porky's heart condition, 49% is considered pretty good. Maximum would be around 60%. Yeah. Mine is only 40. He says this is a fact.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that's a fact. And, if you're working on 40, you're doing OK. I'm telling you, only 1/3 of my heart works.
I'm telling you.
I don't care what figures MG puts in to try and discredit me.
I've got the letter that says it's got up to 49%.
No, you haven't. You've seen a letter, which you shouldn't have seen anyway, from my medical record.
It's been published.
In which on one particular exercise, I managed to get 49% efficiency out of my heart.
Well, that's what
on
the letter
one
said.
exercise, right?
Oh, really?
On one exercise. It's nothing to do.
Overall?
No. It's nothing to do with the capacity of my heart and how much it works. And I do absolutely resent you trying to make out that I'm trying to sort of fool the world.
I'm not.
That my heart is less efficient than theirs. All I'm trying to do is be honest.
I don't know why you would want to try and be honest after all these years of being dishonest.
Now, listen, let me ask you this. You often go off to exotic wine bars, right?
Well, I haven't been to one for a while.
Yeah,
do you know I haven't had a drink since a week ago Monday?
Well, that's very good. And that's because of your gnashes, isn't it?
Well,
we haven't
just
talked
because
about
of
your
the
teeth this week.
medication that I've been talking.
We haven't talked about your teeth this week because of the terrible tragedy which has been happening in Manchester, and we have to be very, very careful about the mood of the nation.
Yeah.
However, next week we will tell the full story about your teeth. Okay? That's
we might tell the full story about them, or we might not.
I think we will.
I mean, you're the one
that.
Well, you see, here you are again. More hypocrisy, right?
Yeah.
You get all upset because I start revealing details about a letter which you happily gave me
from my medical record,
and showed me and said you're more than happy to put this out.
No, I didn't. I never said that.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Now you're telling me that you're going to reveal everything about something that I've done.
Yeah, well, that's because it's not a medical thing; it's a cosmetic thing.
Mine
was a matter of life and death.
So you keep saying. I don't believe it.
Mine was a matter of whether
The more it goes on, the less I believe.
Mine was a matter of whether I walked or whether I didn't. Whether I was, 6 feet under.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And I don't like to be,
You're still the only
harsh.
person, are you not, in the history of heart medicine who has left the heart transplant list alive?
Yes.
You're the only person who was on the heart transplant list who apparently got better.
I'm the only person that I know who discharged himself from the transplant list because
you didn't need a heart anymore.
No, I just couldn't wait any longer. My life was wasting away. My career was disappearing. Everything was disappearing. I said, I'm going. And they said that could be fatal. And in fact, I got better because of the self-determination within my brain.
Yeah, but how many other people has that happened to? None.
Never. It's none.
No, because it's not possible for that to happen if you're genuinely dying and need a new heart.
No.
You can't just go, I'm not going to bother waiting around anymore. I think I'll just go back to work.
I self-medicated,
Rubbish.
and it was mind over matter, and I'm a medical miracle.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm talking to you about these wine bars you go to is next time you go, when you order, your partner, whoever it is with you, an exotic drink which has a plastic straw in it and a twirly umbrella, you must berate the barman and tell him to take them out the drink.
Why?
And to never give you one of those again.
What, straw?
Yes, a plastic straw.
Why?
because they are responsible for half the world's pollution.
Really?
Yeah. Plastic straws, ultimate in human wastefulness, okay?
Yeah.
This comes from a report done on recycling. You can solve the problem so easily. Adults simply do not need straws, okay?
Well, I tend to drink drinks that don't have straws in them, to be honest. Yeah. Generally speaking.
Yeah, but you know when they give you an exotic drink, they put straws in them,
well,
bendy
if you have
straws.
Some places you'll go and ask for a gin and tonic, they'll put a straw in.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, I generally don't ask for that kind of drink. If I'm having champagne, for example, they don't give you a straw for that.
This report done by an organisation called Business Waste says adults are not 8 years of age. Only kids need straws because it helps them to get the drink into their mouth.
Well, what if you're
adults
drinking?
Should not have that problem.
Well, what if you go to, say, a fast food joint and you happen to like going to these places? I don't particularly order things like this, but if you were to get a milkshake, or you get one of those big cans of soda, as they call it in America, they have straws in them.
Well, I think that is practicality, and that's acceptable. It's not acceptable to cosmetically use straws. What are you bashing your microphone
No,
up
I just hit the microphone by mistake.
Yeah, you seem a bit uncoordinated.
Not
are
at
your
all.
teeth hurting or something?
No, my teeth aren't hurting.
No, okay.
No, I just hit the microphone.
Anyway, the same goes for the plastic umbrella and your cocktail.
Yeah.
They rank alongside Christmas cracker treats as the most pointless invention known to man.
Yeah,
okay?
I would agree with that.
Now, this report, Business Waste, is calling for a 5p plastic straw tax.
5p?
And I would agree with that.
Who's calling for it?
Business Waste,
right.
who the organisation who made this report,
Okay.
And I think that's great. Or to go in, next time you go into a place, say, don't put any plastic straws in my drink, please. I want a paper straw. Which are biodegradable.
Uh-huh. And paper straws probably don't work, though, do they? What about those? You know those hard,
they do.
those hard plastic ones you used to get in America, which were you would sometimes call them a swizzle stick.
That's right. Yeah.
And some of them would have the ability to suck water, suck the drink in.
Yes.
But they're very, very much shorter than straws.
Yes, that's right.
But they're harder as well.
Yes, they are.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm talking about the straws which are paper with a wax coating around them.
Yeah.
Right. They're biodegradable.
Yeah.
Now it says here.
What if you could have a metal straw that you could use? Couldn't you just use your own straw?
Yeah, well, if you took your own straw with you, you mean in your top pocket or something like that? I'll whip my straw out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have straws in my drink anyway. I think it's ridiculous. Okay.
I've never seen you use a straw.
No, I wouldn't use a straw. What would you use a straw for? I wouldn't use a straw at all. But anyway, look, that's just to remind people.
Have you got straws at home?
No, I have not got a packet of straws in any of my homes. Definitely not.
Right.
Definitely not.
Not in any of your homes?
No,
really?
definitly not.
What if you have guests around and they want a gin and tonic with a straw in it?
Tough luck.
Really?
Tough luck, okay? When you come
such an uninhabitable host.
When you come to Porky Towers, mate, you live by my rules.
Really?
Now then.
Well, when last time I came to Porky Towers, I didn't get to stay very long.
No, you didn't. No, I'll put you up in a hotel nearby. A fat slob like you,
you're very objectionable tonight.
Wrecking the ambience of my home. It's as simple as that. Okay?
Here's one from Tom who says, Aldi staff have strict efficiency targets and their item scanning is timed to the second.
Is that right?
I thought Porky would love that.
Well, I think it's very good, but it tends to rush you around a bit. I'm not a fast shopper, if you see what I mean.
Right.
I find shopping in supermarkets very therapeutic.
Do you?
Yeah, very.
So what did you buy today? You didn't tell us.
What did I buy today?
In Morrison's, yeah. In Sutton.
I bought quite a lot of bread.
A lot of bread?
Yeah, I bought some fruit.
Bread?
You know, a few packets
a
of
few
rolls.
baguettes, you said?
Yeah, baguettes and that kind of stuff, yeah.
Right.
Fresh fruit.
Fruit?
Yeah, tangerines. Bananas. Blackberries. Blackberries and...
blueberries?
No, red berries.
Red berries?
Yeah, blackberries and red berries.
Is that for your cereal?
No, that's to eat.
Just to eat.
That's to eat with my rice yoghurt.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Very
okay.
nice.
Put that together. Okay.
Uh-huh.
A load of that. And
Did
then
you take your own bag?
No, I get plastic bags on the way
You
out.
buy plastic bags, you pay 5p for them?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's not very good for the environment.
Well, you can't walk around with a bag in your pocket, can you? So, no, I think I'll use my own bag.
Why not? That's what you're supposed to do.
Now, listen, what I have found out talking about foods and all that...
We've seen the time, by the way.
Yeah, well, we can talk about this later in the show. I have come across, because I have a monitoring system, 2 new shortages, which are going to be serious, okay? First of all, olive oil.
Yeah.
Price will rocket.
You've done that one before.
As the crops fail. I don't think so.
Yeah, you have.
Price rockets as crops fail. But the other one is Brazil nuts.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And do you know what the result of that is?
What's the result of that?
Well, it doesn't just mean that you have a shortage of Brazil nuts in your nuts, all hazelnuts.
Yeah,
they're hazelnuts, aren't they? Yeah. But I mean, you know, the nuts that you get in chocolate, right? It doesn't mean there's going to be a shortage now.
No.
What it means is that all these metropolitan elitists who eat graniola for breakfast won't be able to get their granola because granola's made up of Brazil nuts.
I read a piece actually about Paul Dacre, the editor of the Daily Mail.
Oh yes,
and they were describing all of the things that he hates, and it was you. It was absolutely you.
What do you mean?
I'll have to bring it up to you later on. Well, just about your hatred of the so-called metropolitan elite and your view of the world and how he lives on carpet, never goes anywhere and all this kind of thing. Anyway, very interesting stuff. We're coming up next, though, we're going to talk Man United with Mark Bosnich.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
So Jose Mourinho set off at the start of the season with the idea that he would get Manchester United into the Champions League. He couldn't do it on the normal route, I suppose, by getting into the top four. He had a point at which it looked like it might happen, but he ended up giving up on that, and instead he decided he's going to concentrate on winning the Europa League, which he's now done, beating Ajax last night 2-0. I'm going to speak to Mark Bosnich now, old hand at Manchester United, of course, to find out whether he thinks this is the start of something big. Mark, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
And a very good morning to you guys. I know it's very, very early in the morning, but just before I wanted to start, I just want to say that everybody here, especially myself who lived in Manchester for 5 years, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims' family of that terrible attack on Monday, and thoughts as well for the city of Manchester. It's obviously very difficult to play a game of such importance around such a terrible attack, but I think it was really good, not only for Manchester United, but for the city of Manchester, that Manchester United did win in the end.
Yeah. Well, it was a fabulous result, and fantastic to see the city sort of bouncing back and recovering in the way that it has been as well.
Yeah, and also, Bozzy, because, of course, you played for Manchester United, I thought that the gestures made by Manchester City, opening up, parts of their quite extensive network now in the east of Manchester, was fantastic. It brought a city together, and it was great. And it's very good of you to mark that from the other side of the world. Yeah. What I was going to say was, Bozzy, that old Jose Mourinho is out of jail, isn't he? Because he wouldn't have been out of jail had this result gone wrong tonight.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I think you're right with that. Look, he still won the League Cup, but I think not qualifying for the Champions League would have been too much for a lot of the supporters to probably take overall. But two major trophies in a season is excellent going by anyone's standards, and especially in the Premier League where it is so tough. And of course, that qualification, rather for the Champions League is so important to Manchester United. It's always very, very difficult in one's first season when you come to a club and the vast majority of players aren't the players that you've brought in. But I think he's done really well considering the players that he has. And let's be really frank. If he had probably maybe drawn half the games, they would have been in the top four that they have, especially some of the ones at home. So that will be something that obviously that they'll be looking at for next season. But I think it's a very good start. And if you look back to the greatest manager that Manchester United has had, and probably one of the greatest managers in the world, he didn't win the trophy for about 4 or 5 years.
That's right.
And after 3 years, and I can remember being there as an apprentice where people were calling for his head. I mean, there was a game once against Crystal Palace. I remember that when the fans stayed back for about a good half an hour to an hour after the game, calling for his head. So I think people have got to realise that. I know in today's age it's very difficult because, with the money that's being spent and so forth, people automatically think that guarantees success. But money doesn't guarantee success. All it does is give you a better opportunity of having that success.
Were you disappointed, Bozza, with Ajax and the fact that they seemed a little bit overawed by the whole experience? They were one pundit described them as being a bit kind of bullied all through the game.
Yeah, little bit. But I did have a feeling before the game that could happen because they have got so many young players. I mean, it's obviously a wonderful club of great tradition, and they always like bringing through their young players, but. If you look at the Eredivisie where they play, I mean, this year, Feyenoord went and won the title. There are only really 3 teams you could say that every year can go on and to win it. And I watched them, even when they were in the Champions League before they got knocked out. And I watched them, obviously, in the semi-final when they nearly went out, quite amazingly so, to Lyon. And I had that feeling. I thought to myself, a very inexperienced side. They could go one way or the other. Either it's going to be absolutely brilliant and people are going to be going, wow, or what happened. Happened. Basically, I think 5 or 6 of their players, like you said, were a little bit overawed. They didn't really have any answers to Manchester United in the way that they smothered the game. And like I said to you, I had a feeling that could happen.
Bozzy, did you expect Manchester United to go into the rut they went into when Sir Alex Ferguson left? I mean, everybody knew there'd be a bit of a changeover. It might be one season or something like that. But I mean, the club's gone into free fall, and Jose Mourinho's their third manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. You wouldn't have anticipated that, would you?
I don't think 3 managers, no. I did have a feeling there was going to be a little bit of a dip. When somebody's there for that long, it's always very, very difficult, the whole club, and not just the football side, but everything. There are going to be changes. So I did think maybe for a couple seasons, I didn't think they'd be having 3 managers in such a short space of time. But slowly but surely they're picking themselves up. Obviously the FA Cup last season, and now 2 trophies this season. So, like I said, I think it stands them in good stead. Just to slowly but surely, get back to where they were.
Yeah. And what do you think they're going to need to do? Because obviously it's going to be great news for the Premier League in the sense that, here we are, first time somebody's won something since Chelsea won the Europa League the year after they won the Champions League in 2013. They're going to need to go into Europe if they hope to get past the group stages with a slightly better team than they've got now, right?
Yeah, they will. They know that. Well, a slightly better squad, let's put it that way. I mean, the young boy Rashford, he's going to be an exceptional young player. We know that. But with Ibrahimovic suffering that serious injury and obviously doubts whether or not Wayne Rooney is going to stay at the club, they're obviously going to have to get a top striker and one that can play up front on his own if need be, or together with young Rashford.
That'll be Griezmann, won't it, Bozzy, from Atletico, yeah.
Yeah, they've been linked with him, and they'll be linked with a few other players. But I think that's definitely that's got to be the number one target where they're going to look at now. The goalkeeping situation will be interesting as well. David De Gea obviously has been outstanding for so many years, but there are strong stories coming from Spain that he will return there, so he will have to be replaced as well. And I would also be looking for some strengthening in midfield. Because of the amount of games that they will have next season. And when I mean strengthen, I mean like the squad players that Jose Mourinho will be able to play. Say, for example, if they have, say, a Crystal Palace on a Saturday and they've got to play Bayern Munich on a Tuesday, obviously there will come times, if it's later on in the season, when he'll want to rest players for that Bayern Munich game. Yeah. And players that are able to come in and good enough to beat the likes of Crystal Palace on that Saturday to keep the momentum going in the league. Mm-hmm. The one good thing about being in the Champions League is the ability to attract players to come and do that. Yep. The only thing is that a lot of the top players, are going to be a little bit sceptical about coming, knowing that their role is going to be more of a squad role rather than a starting 11 role.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. Now, coming up at the weekend, we've got the FA Cup final, Chelsea against Arsenal, another old club of yours, Bozzy. Yep. You reckon Chelsea are going to do the double?
I think they will. Arsenal, obviously, disappointing this season and not making the top 4 for the first time. I think it's in 20 years. I think Chelsea have got the momentum. Wonderful performance from Antonio Conte's men this season, and I think they'll have too much for Arsenal.
What about Conte versus Mourinho? Because there's been a lot of talk about, obviously Conte's done a great job coming to Chelsea. They've won, they've run away with the title really, even though it got a bit close towards the end. Who's done a better job, would you say? Because Mourinho has done a brilliant job, it now turns out, having won the Europa League. I mean, is he the manager of the year for you?
Well, I have to go to the man who won the league, and Antonio Conte. And I love Jose Mourinho. He's won 2 trophies. I mean, if Antonio Conte happens to fail against Arsenal this year, I'm sure he'd be able to quote that to say, well, he won 2 trophies, and Antonio Conte won the one. But the big one is the league. To be the best team, clearly the best team after 38 games played, across all types of conditions, in all types of weather, and especially in the Premier League where there are no easy games. For me, the manager who manages the team that wins that league should always be manager of the year.
That's right. And Bozzy, the other thing that one of the reasons I'm very pleased that Jose Mourinho is back in the Champions League is that, without a shadow of a doubt, the English clubs have fallen behind in the merit table in Europe, and we need a couple of good strong seasons to get back up there.
Yeah, we do. there was a time, obviously, in the early 2000s where, there were 3 out of 4 teams making a semi-final.
That's right.
But there's a long time between drinks. I think Chelsea obviously was the last team that won the Champions League. Yeah. So it is, a lot of people always sort of say, sort of get over it, but it is much more difficult for English teams to do well because of the intensity of the games that they have and the amount of games. I mean, the amount of games that Manchester United had to play towards the end of the season in the frequency, was quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
So a lot of these other leagues that they're playing against, and there's no disrespect to them, it's just a reality. A lot of the teams that they play against lower down, they're talking about games which are pretty much give-me's. You don't have that in the Premier League, or you very rarely have that in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the foreign managers who come over start to realise that, once they're going through the season. So it will be very difficult, but I'm sure, Manchester City, Liverpool as well, Jurgen Klopp back in there, obviously Chelsea and Tottenham as well, and now Manchester United, and I'm sure we can start doing like we have done in the past.
I hope so, yeah.
Sure, and talking of Liverpool, they're down in Sydney at the moment. I don't know if you had a chance to go and see the game. 72,000 crowd.
Yeah, they are. I was actually working last night, but there were 73,000 people who turned up at ANZ Stadium, so they won 3-0 against the local champions, Sydney FC. So I actually caught up with Craig Johnson and Jason McAteer and Gary McAllister on Monday. There was an event that I went down and interviewed for them. So, look, they are the biggest supported team. It hurts me to say, but they are the biggest supported team down here in Australia, and mainly because of their success that they had, obviously, in the 70s and 80s, and also with Craig Johnson being an Australian as well. So it was. When they see me never walk alone, like I said, even though it pains me to say, I must admit it's quite a sight, especially when there's so many people doing it at once.
I bet. With an Australian accent, it must be quite funny.
Oh, yeah, try and resist it. And one of your countrymen, Bozzy, Harry Kewell, has taken his first managerial role here in England with Crawley.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, well, look, good luck to him. He obviously has got ambitions that he wants to be a manager, and he's basically, starting from a point where it would be. It's better for him because, when you start as a manager, like you do in any job, really. I mean, you think to yourself, if you want to be a great lawyer or a great doctor or something like, or even a footballer, really. A lot of footballers start when they're 10, 11, 12. It takes you 10 years, 10 to 12 years to get to that standard. So, good on him for starting there, and all the very best to him.
Yeah, indeed.
Great stuff. Well, Mark, listen, thanks very much.
It's always great to talk to you. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Mark Bosnich there reporting into us from Sydney, Australia, where the Liverpool team have just been down. I mean, the season's not over for everybody yet, but I guess for Liverpool they could take their time and go on a pre-season, post-season tour.
Well, the end-of-season tours are always very controversial because players say they don't get enough rest these days. And the minute the competitive football in England's finished, whoosh, let's go and earn a few million quid overseas.
But amazing that, isn't it? 73,000 people turning out to see Liverpool playing.
It is incredible.
A team in Sydney. I think Steven Gerrard played as well.
Yeah.
Scott says this: I'm surprised that Porky hasn't thrown his hat into the ring to be United's new striker next season. He seems to be good at everything else.
Well, I will not respond to that sort of gobbledygook.
There's no more gobbledygook coming in the next couple of hours. We're going to talk to Sandra Lee down under about koalas, and of course, it's Porkyvision as well. This is TalkSport.
Everyone's a winner, baby. That's no lie. That's no lie. You never fail.
TalkSport, we are the two mics. Lots more coming up, including, of course, Porkyvision a little bit later on. The Porky Quiz will be tomorrow. We may well film that, actually, because we haven't been able to do that for a while.
That's right.
We were off last week, and it'll be the first thing we filmed for a bit.
Yes.
We'll also hopefully have some more announcements on the whole New York situation.
We certainly will.
We're sort of imminently waiting
We
for
certainly will. I'm afraid
scenario.
that I think we all accept that a lot of stuff went on hold this week
because
of the atrocity and tragedy and the disgusting.
And we'll have a look at the front pages coming up in a little while
that have happened in Manchester United. Yeah, we will.
Quite a lot of interesting developments on that front as well. A couple of tweets here. Robbie says, Porky wants to ban straws or put a tax on them and admits then that he buys bags while shopping. Maybe you should put a £5 tax on bags to force him to bring his own.
Well, no, listen, the point is that I pay the 5p for the bag because that means that I'm aware of the fact that, you mustn't do anything awful with that bag. I mean, you know, being a member of a Swan Conservancy and looking after ducks and that sort of thing.
Swan Conservancy?
Yeah.
That's a new one. I thought it was a duck conservancy.
It's swan and duck. It's wildlife.
Swan and duck?
Yeah, it's wildlife.
Okay.
It's the wildlife.
What about moorhens?
Yeah, wildfowl.
Yeah,
wildfowl. Yeah, they're included as well, yeah.
Do they have to be sort of water-based?
Yes.
So it wouldn't count for things like pheasants or
No. Anything that goes on the water.
Yeah.
I like the moorhens because they've got red beaks. You know, they're colourful.
They are.
Yeah. Anyway, point of my story is I know the damage that plastic rubbish can do to the waterborne areas where these wonderful animals live.
Yeah.
And that's why you'll never find a plastic bag issued to me will ever go anywhere except into the recycling bin.
Yeah, but if the point of giving a 5p tax for the plastic bags is to stop people from using them, then maybe they need to make it higher.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a lot of people did stop using them because they were like, I'm not paying 5p.
Yes.
And there were those ludicrous scenes, you remember at the beginning?
That's right.
Where people were sort of just carrying stuff out in their arms.
Yes.
Dropping things all over the place. Taking trolleys and leaving them by their cars, nicking trolleys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which you pointed out, because they wanted to save 5p. I mean, maybe now those people who are left paying the 5p, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because I do it occasionally.
Yes.
Because, as you say, you can't always walk around with a bag. But maybe they need to make it £1 or something, just to make people stop getting bags.
I couldn't believe that just charging somebody 5p for a bag would lead to a massive decrease in the number of bags that people took out of supermarkets. But it did. But I would agree with you. If I've got £60 worth of shopping... Why not charge me £1 for or maybe £4 for the bags to put 50, £60 of shopping in? Yeah. I think that'd be a very good way to
I'll tell you what,
it
I mean, without wishing to make a difference between different supermarkets, but one of the things that Ocado do very well when they deliver to your house is they will take plastic bags away and refund you the 5p. So
that's very good.
So even if they're not Ocado bags, so I could have, say, 10 bags from Tesco's.
Yes.
I could give them to the guy who comes to my door, and they refund me 50p.
Now, on this
that's quite a good idea.
It's a good idea, and on this very subject, I've just searched through my my electronic device to find this. Tesco wants to quit offering customers 5p carry bags.
Ah, there you go.
It will sell only bags for life, which will cost either 8 or 10p.
Okay.
If a trial at 3 stores proves a success. The stores ditching them completely for a 10-week experiment are in Norwich, Aberdeen and Dundee.
Well, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Tesco spokesman said customers who need a bag can still buy a bag for life, which they can reuse.
Yeah.
Charge over bags has led to 1.5 billion fewer being dished out at Tesco alone.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'm glad I don't run a company that manufactures plastic bags for supermarkets.
You know, funnily enough, I used to know somebody who did.
By now,
well, I used to know somebody who did, and he was fighting a rearguard action up in Scotland.
Right.
Because his argument was, but actually, plastic bags are a lot easier to cart around. Yeah. If you imagine how you can compress them.
Yes, that's
in the back of a truck. He said, when you, like, if you remember in America, you would get a paper bag.
Yeah, paper bag,
and actually, making a paper bag is almost as economically and ergonomically bad for the environment as making a plastic bag.
That's right, yeah.
But actually shipping them around in the back of lorries takes up more space. You need more lorries, and you can't compress them.
It's dreadful.
So it's a sort of nightmare all round, really.
A dreadful old situation, isn't it? Yeah.
The answer is just to get the stuff delivered to your house,
yes,
and then you don't need bags.
Of course it is.
Get it all delivered in a crate.
Yeah, but that has to come by a lorry that's using diesel fuel to get there, right?
Unless, of course, I guess they start using electric cars and electric lorries.
Yeah, but most of the goods I buy from supermarkets, I take home by hand. Yeah. I use foot sole power only.
Pony.
Yeah. I use only the leather on the sole of my shoes to get my stuff home. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all that stuff you bought today in Morrison's in Sutton, you walked all the way back to Epsom with that, did you?
No, I put it in the boot of my car.
Oh, so you were driving?
Because I can electronically open the boot as I approach the car and dump it in nicely, and then close the boot and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, you can electronically open the boot.
Yeah. It's a very efficient way of
with a special device. Boot opening device.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
wow.
It was because. But I was on the way back from somewhere else. I didn't go out specially in the car just to buy that stuff. So I thought I'd let you know that, okay?
Yeah, but still, a portion of your journey still has to be put down to, fossil fuel degradation.
Not because I stopped and didn't divert, didn't go into a car park or anything like that, okay?
Well, no, you're using petrol, though.
What?
To go shopping.
No, I wasn't. I was out on a business mission, and on the way back, I stopped and bought some groceries, okay?
I see. Okay.
Simple as that.
Amazing. How about this one from Steve, who's referring to the picture of you with your shorts on. Last time I saw legs like that, I was winding them down on my trailer.
Really? Do you know what? I sometimes think I should have been a cyclist, because people are often amazed at the massive size of my calf muscles.
It's all relative,
they're huge.
Though, isn't it?
No, but they're huge.
Well, they only look huge because the rest of you is relatively small.
No, that's not true. And sometimes I was watching a bit of the old
having huge calves is not necessarily a good thing. They look like you're retaining water, to be honest. They don't look very muscular.
No.
I mean, if you want to see the muscular definition of my calves, you see that. Yeah. See that? Look at that. That's muscular definition.
No, that's varicose veins,
No, it's
mate.
not. That's muscular definition.
Haven't you seen my calves? My calves are incredibly
your
muscly.
calves look as if somebody's filled them up with water.
Well, they're not filled with water. If you feel them, they're rock hard.
Are they?
They're like,
that could be a problem.
It's like hitting granite.
It's about the only thing that's rock hard.
I was watching a bit of the old Peloton yesterday.
The Peloton?
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, super.
Yes.
Now, there's a word we would never even have used 5 years ago.
Well, that's right. I didn't even know what Peloton was.
Were you watching it on television?
Yeah, I was watching it on television. And
is there a tour going on at the moment, then?
It was something like that, yeah. But it's on the continent somewhere, or it might be in Yorkshire, I think, or something like that. But anyway, these guys all crashed into each other again, which I thought was a rather unpleasant thing to do.
It's not nice, that.
No. But then I saw them going up the hill, and I thought I could do that. But anyway, look, I haven't got around to telling you about the shortage of Brazil nuts.
No,
right?
you haven't, no.
One of the UK's leading manufacturers of granola.
Yes.
I'm glad that the old, smarmies are going to be without their granola, right?
When you say the smarmies, who do you mean?
Well, these people who eat granola are just...
Well, granola's like muesli, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just posers.
But I eat muesli occasionally.
Oh, I hate muesli.
Why?
Well, it's like rabbit food. It's like that other stuff they were giving away today in Covent Garden or Leicester Square or somewhere.
Well, that's stuff that you don't like.
Graze,
yeah.
God, rabbit
food.
But
I actually prefer to eat just porridge oats. I
have porridge sometimes.
Yeah.
You buy them in plastic containers.
Well, you can make your own muesli, you know that, don't you?
I don't want muesli. Porridge oats I like. What I do is, right, I buy it in a plastic container, and then I put my own additives in.
Yeah.
Honey.
When you say a plastic container, do you mean you buy that instant oat stuff?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just buy porridge oats. Just buy the packet of porridge oats.
Scott's porridge oats.
Yeah.
Toss me a caber. Right. Now then, what it says is one of the UK's leading manufacturers of granola and cereal bars, and they're called Eat Natural, right?
Yes.
Said it's changing many of its recipes because supplies of Brazil nuts have run dry. Right? So the guy here says we're not going to get a single Brazil nut delivered to our warehouse after June the 12th.
Right.
Okay? This comes from...
Can you not substitute Brazil nuts for some other kind of nut?
No, you can't.
Why
not? He said, you often get poor harvests with ingredients, but nothing has ever happened on this scale before. It's a complete catastrophe.
Is it?
The Brazil nut harvest has failed completely.
And where are they coming from, these Brazil nuts?
Where do you think the Brazil nuts come
from,
you idiot?
No, I know that you're going to say, well, of course Brazil. They come from Brazil. Well, they may not, though.
Where do you think Pontefract cakes come from?
I don't know.
Pontefract.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm certain, yeah. I mean, where do you think a Melton Mowbray pork pie comes from?
Well, that comes from Melton Mowbray, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I bought some of those
champagne
today, by the way.
What, you bought some Melton Mowbray pies?
Yeah.
What, in Morrison's?
In Morrison's, yeah.
What, did you buy them from the deli counter, or did you
Yes,
buy them?
I did, actually, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. It says, reports suggest this year's crop is just 1/5 of the volume produced a year ago.
Yeah.
Now then, to answer...
so worried about this, we should have asked Tim Vickery about this.
Excuse me, to answer your question, despite their name... The world's biggest supply of Brazil nuts comes from Bolivia.
There you go. Yeah. So thank you very much for being Mr. Smarmy.
Which
don't you know where they've come from, you idiots?
Which has seen its worst drought for 25 years, okay?
Why don't you call them Bolivian nuts, then?
Yeah, Bolivian nuts, yeah. Manufacturers are scrabbling around for supplies, with many saying it's touch and go. Touch and go.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be enough for the key season of Christmas. Andrew Jackson, director of Whitworth's, which supplies supermarket-owned brand nut products, said, everybody's already agreed their Christmas ranges. There's going to be a challenge whether there'll be enough Brazil nuts.
Well,
it could be a catastrophe.
Well, no, just get pistachios. You know, you could do without Brazil nuts for one Christmas.
No,
what's the difference?
I always get my mum a box of Brazil nuts for
Does
Christmas.
she eat them, though?
Yeah,
really?
well, no, I mean, she has
No,
them around
nobody
the
eats
family
them,
on
that's the
Christmas
point.
Day.
No, but the point is everybody buys all these nuts and things for Christmas, but nobody eats them.
But you love a Brazil nut with chocolate on, don't you?
I quite like a chocolate-covered Brazil nut.
Yeah, that's what
I
I'm
do.
saying, yes.
But, I mean, equally, I would if I never ate another one in my life for the rest of my time on this earth, I wouldn't bother about it.
I wonder why Bolivia produced most of the world's Brazil nuts.
I mean, that's a very good question.
Brazil's a very big country.
Well, it is, but why call them Brazil nuts if they're grown in Bolivia?
Call them the Bolivia nuts in future.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? I'm looking at this, the Brazil tree. The Brazil nut tree is the only species in the monotypic genus Bartholletia.
Oh, yeah.
It is native to the Guianas, Venezuela, Brazil, eastern Colombia, eastern Peru, and eastern Bolivia.
Well, there you go.
So, I mean, obviously, some of them grow in Brazil,
but
not all of them.
Most
something
of them
to do
are
with
in
the
Bolivia.
Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, it must be something to do with that. Yeah.
Well, that means there must be a problem in the Amazon rainforest.
It's a drought. I've just told you, it's the biggest drought in 25 years.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
How much more information do you need?
Well, it's going to affect more than Brazil nuts, is what I'm saying. If there's a drought in the Amazon rainforest, surely that means that there's some kind of mega catastrophe coming our way.
Well, Maybe.
I mean, they are the Earth's lungs, after all.
Yeah, they are, indeed.
Aren't they?
Totally agree.
This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Talk Sport, we are the Two Mics. Sandra Lee's coming up in a little while, all the way from Australia. She's our favourite Australian. She'll tell us about the koala story and also a couple of other big stories that are making news in that part of the world. A couple of tweets for you, Mr. Parry. Owen says this, Porky wants the shops to charge people £3 or £4 for a plastic bag. Some of us aren't earning as much money as he is. And also Matthew says, you're forgetting that we all don't earn as much as you. Most working class people are only on £1,230 a month. That's no way to live.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean that. I meant that a pound of bag to keep people from, chucking plastic bags away is a worthwhile investment to try and keep the countryside clean.
Steve says, don't you think supermarkets might be less disingenuous if they didn't advertise their brand on the 5p bag? Well, I mean, I suppose if they're going to give you a bag from their shop, it's going to have their name on it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit much to ask them not to do that.
Well, it would have to have a general agreement amongst all stores that, it just issue blank bags. Like, for instance, cigarettes are now sent out in the same packets and look horrible and ridiculous.
And that's not going to stop people smoking.
Yeah, of course
it's a completely pointless activity.
Of course it's not.
People are either going to smoke or not, regardless. A lot of people pointing out that the Giro d'Italia that's on at the moment. Taxi Man says that.
Oh, is that the cycle race?
The cycle race,
that must have been what I was watching.
It must have been. Anthony says that as well.
I totally agree. Now,
and just one final one. G. O'Hara says we should have a calf off, which I'm not sure we want to see.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
But he's also said he's heard on the sports news that Barcelona is going to name their new boss on Monday. Says, how's Porky's ticker?
Says that again.
The Barcelona are going to name their new boss on Monday.
Okay, do we know who this is going to be?
Don't know.
Okay, I'm
no
not
idea
sure who that's going to be.
Don't know, but I presume it's not going to be Ronald Koeman, because you might have heard by now.
No, it's not Ronald Koeman. Talking about that, a bit later in the show, we'll have a look at the speculation surrounding the new Crystal Palace manager.
Yeah.
But for the time being, let's have a look at the front pages of the papers, because, we've had the trauma of the Manchester horror this week.
Yes.
And, we've tried to cover it as respectfully, I think is the word, as we possibly can. And, of course, it's still going on, and there are still some terribly tragic stories. And the one that hits me right in the face is the fact that a lady, very attractive lady called Michelle Kiss, is amongst the people who've died. She's a mother, but her little girl, Millie, survived and now has got to come to terms with the fact that her mother's gone in this terrible tragedy. And you're going to find, because we know this, Mike, from the life we've had in newspapers, there'll be a half a dozen more terribly, horribly tragic stories like that before we get to the end of the terror that this has inflicted upon Manchester.
And as we've learned, more of the eyewitness statements have come out as well that I've been reading over the last 24 hours, and some of them are horrific. I read one yesterday about somebody who actually saw the blast as it happened, and how there was a massive flash of light, and then this blast, and people were trying to kind of protect their children, and a couple of these people who have died, one of them I think was protecting her niece, who did survive, that one you just mentioned, who's the daughter lived but the mother died. The Polish couple who went to pick up their daughter, they both died, and
That's
I
right.
think there's two kids there in that family who now don't have parents.
There's one mother who's still in a coma, an induced coma, because her injuries are so serious. When she wakes up, she's going to be told her daughter was killed. It doesn't bear examination. But the main focus of a lot of the papers are the family who are actually at the centre of the terror, i.e. the suicide bomber himself and the extended family that he has, looks as though they could have been a family cell of their own.
Isn't it interesting? Because one of the papers have got them on the front pages calling them the jihadi family, because there's been 2 arrests in Libya. The guy himself, who blew himself up, of course, is Salman Abedi. His father, Ramadan, and his younger brother, Hashim, were both held in Libya and after they were arrested for counter-terrorism. And the belief is, in some quarters, that his younger brother was planning to do a similar attack. And, I mean, of course, this is the other reason why we also see in some papers with pictures of the army walking and marching around, because the reason why the threat level's gone up is they think the bomb maker who made this bomb is still at large.
They can't find the bomb maker. What they say is that these people were the cannon fodder of the whole organisation, the guys who put the bombs on their back, and then they become suicide bombers who constructed the device that led to the carnage. And you're absolutely right. On one paper, the Daily Mirror, the kid brother of Manchester suicide bomber Salman Abedi was planning his own atrocity, security sources fear. All of that is about what's happened in this country, but there's one piece here which I have total empathy with, and it's in the Daily Mail, and you get to, the back of their coverage, and then they start asking political questions. And the question they're asking is, was a lot of what has happened in Manchester this week a result of UK government policy over the years? And they particularly focus upon David Cameron. Are we now paying the price for the chaos Cameron unleashed in Libya, says John R. Bradley, who is an expert on what was called after the Arab Spring. Yeah. Because what happened was, in a nutshell, was a lot of, sort of hand-wringing Western politicians in this country and in France and in other European countries, but most particularly, I think, David Cameron and Mr. Sarkozy, who was then the president of France, decided that, we'll get rid of dictators like Colonel Gaddafi because the people who are trying to topple him are people who want democracy in their countries. Yeah. They weren't. They were crazy Islamist jihadists who just wanted to take over their country, and that's exactly what happened. And now we find today there's a big Libyan connection between what happened in Manchester and the UK foreign policy under David Cameron.
Well, isn't it also interesting that Salman Abedi's father, Ramadan, and his wife came to Manchester in that time when he was a rebel fighting against Gaddafi.
Absolutely.
And when it all became this terrible sort of chaotic war situation, they came to the UK. His children were born here.
That's right.
One of them has now grown up here and decided he wants to blow us up.
That's right.
He didn't like the way he was being treated or something. They were also given, a housing association house.
That's right.
Lately, the father and the mother have moved back to Libya.
Absolutely.
And they've kept the house.
Yeah.
And so people are very angry about this.
That's right.
They say, well, how is it possible, one, that they can do this, whereby they can kind of choose to live half their life in Libya half their life in the UK.
That's right. Just to get one point in here, right? Mr. Cameron's strategy to send in the RAF against Gaddafi's forces, most enthusiastically promoted to his eternal shame by then Prime Minister David Cameron. His reckless policy brought about regime change as the Islamists came to power, as was the case with opposition groups across Tunisia, Egypt and Syria before the so-called Arab Spring. Gaddafi's rules was extreme in their ideology, blinded by a hatred of... those who were against Gaddafi's rule were extremists in their ideology, blinded by a hatred of secularist, non-religious governments and the West.
Yes.
And Cameron couldn't see this. I can never work out why politicians who've had fantastic educations like Eton and Oxford University can't see what we can see, that actually better the devil you know than the devil you depose and bring other devils in.
Well,
that's the way the Middle East works. Don't they understand that?
Well, this is the problem. And it's not, I mean, to be fair to Cameron, you may not wish to be, I mean, he would have been getting advice from all sorts of places and all sorts of quarters.
Yeah, but he should be bright enough to work that out for himself.
Well, there's a collection of people who didn't see any of it happening. They didn't see Egypt coming. They didn't see Tunisia coming. They didn't see, Libya coming. They didn't see Syria coming.
I did. I saw it all coming.
Well, then maybe they should have had
I'd worked in the Middle East and had conversations with people out there who were told that, look, don't worry, Libya's okay. As long as you keep your nose clean in Libya, you can sit on the banks of the Euphrates and smoke your pipe at night and everybody leaves you alone. Yeah. He said, that's what we want, a calm country. Oh, no, not for Mr. Cameron. He never went there and found out what the people wanted, just decided to send in the RAF and I'll be a war hero.
Yeah,
and it goes back much further than that, by the way, to 2003, because that was in 2011, okay? It goes back to 2003 when Tony Blair decided, I want to be the second most famous man in the world, so I'll go to Camp David, walk around Camp David with President George W. Bush, and we will go and blow apart Iraq for no other reason that we don't like Saddam Hussein.
Well, because we think we can blame Saddam Hussein for 9/11, basically.
But we knew, and everybody knew, that the report that said he had weapons of mass destruction threatening the West was dodgy in the extreme. Well, it was a ridiculous operation.
You would have thought so. The other story that a lot of people go with as well, of course, is the problem at the moment between UK and US intelligence. Which is that...
Now, this is a bit of a scandal.
Well, I'm not sure how I feel about this, funnily enough, because, I mean, you and I both worked in America. I was always much more of the opinion that it was better to get the information rather than not to be given the information, if you know what I mean. And then you can make a decision as to whether it's responsible to publish it, right? But in this country, the belief from Amber Rudd and the Home Office and from the Cabinet would seem to be, we don't want to tell the press anything. In America, of course, they're getting the same information from the same intelligence sources, and it's getting leaked. And so now what we have on the front page of The Guardian is a leak of a picture of the battery, of the detonator, of the rucksack that this guy used. Now, apparently, according to Amber Rudd, this is causing a problem for the investigation. I'm not quite sure how that's true. And I'm rather, reluctant to agree with a British government who is keen to keep things from us whereas the Americans are more keen to let it go out and for us to make our own minds up.
All I would say is that the security services, in good faith, are exchanging information.
Yeah.
So MI6 are giving them the pictures which haven't been seen yet in this country.
Yeah.
I do think the system's wrong when the first we see of them is on the front of the New York Times, because our secret agencies have given them to America's secret agencies, and their policy has been, we'll let the world see them.
Yeah.
That should have been our decision.
Yes, it should have been, but that would suggest to me that there's an element of naivety around the way that the British are handling all of this, and maybe they need to look into their own operations before they start having a go at the Americans. But there's going to be a row, apparently, between Theresa May and Donald Trump about all this, so we'll follow all of that. Of course, we'll be keeping you updated with anything that happens over the course of the night as well. It's time to welcome our very, very, very good friend from Australia, and of course our favourite Australian, Ms. Sandra Lee. Sandra, a very good morning to you.
G'day, fellas, and how are you both?
Very well indeed, Sandra, and better from hearing from you.
Yes, absolutely right. We're in the midst of summer. Porky's wearing a pair of shorts, which is slightly disturbing. You may have seen a picture of his white legs on Twitter. I would counsel you not to do that if you've eaten anything relatively recently. But yeah, all is well. We've had a bit of a rough old week here, thanks to the jihadis, but basically we're recovering.
Yes, well, that's good. And all of Australia is with every single one of you. And what a horrible, horrible event.
Yes, really, really ghastly.
Shocking,
really ghastly. But let's talk about other things. What about what's going on? Porky told me earlier in the week that he's worried about koalas becoming extinct. What's going on down there?
Well, it's been going on for some time. For the last probably about a decade now, conservatives and animal protection people have been worried about the sort of like the devastation of the koala populations, particularly along the eastern seaboard, due to, number one, bushfires that absolutely decimate the population, and development and attacks by other animals, including feral dogs and feral cats. So they are really endangered, and they were put on the endangered species list about 6 or 7 years ago.
But the thing is, Sandra, they are so unique. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't be so unique. They're unique to your country. They are one of the, a bit like panda bears in China. Koalas are seen as the cuddliest animal in the world. And surely the Australian people have got to, you must be able to do something to save the koala. It might cost a lot of money, but surely for your national identity and your national pride, more should be done, and it's got to be worth it.
Yep, I agree with you totally. And I think the push now is to work out where the best place to, put up preservation areas for them and to move populations. They're incredibly localised, the koala. They like to stay in an area that they've been in for some time.
Right.
So there is a bit of a problem about how to move them and how to set up new sort of koala colonies. But that is the plan. It's to move them out of the growing areas where there is growing population and putting them into other areas, more regional.
Okay, can't we just... not we, but you lot. Can't you just...
You lot?
Yeah, but the Australians, Australian brethren.
You mean our Commonwealth cousins?
Commonwealth cousins, absolutely. Can't we just, find an area in Australia and say, I tell you what, we're going to build a eucalyptus forest which is 10 miles long and 10 miles wide, and this will be, the world's greatest colony of koala bears that's ever been created?
Well, that's probably one idea that I could put on your behalf to sort of the people who are in that area.
Yes, sounds great, doesn't it? Porky's eucalyptus forest.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it just sounds like a non-starter already.
No, it's not. What's wrong with that? You've got plenty of spare land in Australia.
Yeah, but there's nothing grows on it. It's a desert.
Yeah, well, you have to irrigate it and, find some water from somewhere.
The trouble with koalas, I guess, as well, Sandra, is that it's all very well saying they look like the world's cuddliest animals, but they're actually not very pleasant creatures, are they? I mean, my understanding, and I've not ever stood underneath a tree where a koala is living, but they quite like urinating on people and then generally scratching them.
That's exactly right. And more than one or two sort of members of the royal family and international politicians and dignitaries have come afoul of our lovely cuddly koala, which is doing just that thing when they've been sort of putting them in their arms and saying, aren't they a cute, lovely little thing? And then all of a sudden, not so cute.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but I mean, I have to object to this conversation. I work with this man, Mike Graham. I'm trying to preserve one of the world's favourite animals, and he's just telling everybody they're not worth preserving.
I'm just saying they're not as nice as they look.
Because they urinate all over people all over the time. Well, every living creature urinates.
No, but they
just got to teach them where to urinate and when.
Yeah, but they're up a tree above you, generally speaking.
In that case, irrigate the trees or something like that,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you what, talking of people doing that kind of thing to each other, I understand, politically speaking, down in Australia,
there's a bit
of toughness going on in the Parliament because Malcolm Turnbull is having to kind of make concessions to the left. And what's going on there?
It's all about the budget, wasn't it, Sandra?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Well, the government is losing ground in the polls. Every 2 weeks there's a new poll here in Australia, and ever since Malcolm Turnbull rolled the previous Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, on the basis that he had lost 30 news polls in a row, since then Malcolm Turnbull has lost 14, so he's almost at the halfway mark.
Right.
So he has to move to the left because that's where it looks like the voters are going in all of these polls. So the last budget that he put out, which was only a week and a half ago, was very much a Labor budget. It stole the thunder from Labor.
Yep.
It gave them no ground for to launch their own attacks. So he has moved left, and he's left the Liberal national base completely high and dry. So who knows what's going to happen at the next election? It looks like if the polls continue the way they are now, it'll be an absolute routing for the Liberals, and Labor will get back in.
I was going to say, I haven't had an election for a couple of weeks, so I mean, you must be due one, right?
Yeah, you haven't had a new Prime Minister for a few months. I mean, I'm told from looking at my economic reports here that it was all to do with the fact that he was under pressure to pass a banker-bashing budget, and eventually he conceded and did.
Yes, well, that was one of the big things that he did. He's put on a $6 billion levy on 4 of the big banks and one of the 5 actually, one of the private banks.
Yeah.
And that will then, of course, obviously be passed on to every person who has a bank account or a home loan or a superannuation fund, because the banks, of course, they have to absorb the cost, and we all know what that means, pass it on to the consumer.
Well, indeed. Now, Sandra...
There's a rich guy there who could help out.
I was going to say, we've got a story here about a guy who is so wealthy and so generous, he's become the biggest philanthropist in the history of your wonderful nation. Where's this guy get all his money from, and what's he all about?
Yes, he has. He's dug it out of the ground. He was one of our great iron ore magnates. Twiggy Forrest is his name, Andrew Twiggy Forrest. And at the moment, he's worth $4 billion, according to Forbes magazine, which is down on his greatest wealth of $12.7 billion in June of 2008, when his Fortescue shares mining hit an all-time high. Yeah. So with the downturn in the iron ore industry and exports, he's obviously sort of gone off the boil a bit. But his $400 million donation to various charities was the biggest single donation by a person who is alive. There's been a bigger one in Australian history, which was done by a chap called Paul Ramsey. Upon his death, he left his entire estate to various charities, which absolutely is stonkingly huge. It's in the billions, and so that's a bigger one, but by a living person, this is considered the biggest.
Yeah, well,
it's amazing, isn't it? I'm looking at how much he's going to spend on various things. International Cancer Institute, 75 million Australian dollars. Modern slavery, another 75 million. University education and research, 75 million. Childhood education, 75 million. Amazing, isn't it?
This guy was known as Twiggy when he was at school because he was said to be, a bit of a sort of, weakling type youth who's turned out to be, one of your greatest ever entrepreneurs.
And he's made it all off the back of iron ore,
He has, I know. Well, I told you all about the iron ore, price of iron ore, didn't I, in the iron ore boom years ago.
Well, I'm looking at a piece here that somebody's tweeted, Alistair actually, who says there's something going on at the moment in the iron ore markets. The mood is apparently darkening.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought China was picking up, Sandra.
Well, I thought it was too, but it's it depends on sort of the political stage as well, I think, what's going on all around the world.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be interesting times ahead.
Yeah. Now, we saw some sharks off the coast of America the other day. Yes. Somebody had apparently been able to film them from a helicopter swimming off the coast, I think, of South Carolina, very, very close to some people surfing. How's the shark and kangaroo watch going at the moment?
Well, we've had no nasty shark attacks lately, thank goodness, touch wood. And the kangaroos are not jumping through people's bedroom windows at the moment, so they're all quiet.
Right, and now the other story I wanted to ask you about, Sam, I don't know if you're aware of this, is there's some nut in your country. Well, there's quite a few nuts, actually, in your country, but this one particular nut I'm talking about is some bloke who makes a living by telling people he's a descendant of Vincent van Gogh, the world's most famous painter, or one of them.
Certainly one of them.
And goes around doing selfies with people. I mean, isn't that a very strange way to earn a living?
Well, you've got to say it's actually original original.
Yeah, it is original, yeah.
Well, you could do that, couldn't you?
No,
you could do selfies pretending to be somebody else.
No.
Like the one you did with that little girl. The guy said she thought he was meeting Father Christmas.
No, that was ridiculous. That was just a passing fancy. But, this sort of thing happened often. Do you have a guy who pretends to be Ned Kelly or anything like that?
Yeah, Mick Jagger.
That's right.
Just put a bucket on your head.
Yeah, that's right.
It's fine.
Yeah, that's the easy way to do it. It's like I always said, if you want to do a living as an impersonator, just put a mask on and say you're the Lone Ranger. That's right. Yeah, it's absolutely easy. Yeah. Great.
What else is going on in your part of the world, Sandra?
I don't know how to follow that up.
Exactly.
On your head.
Exactly, yeah. What I would say about that mining boom, actually, every time I get onto a mining story, is I'm constantly amazed at the size of the vehicles used in the iron ore mining industry, Sandra, in Australia. You don't see vehicles like that anywhere else in the world. It's like midgets using machines built for giants.
It is. They're super-sized Tonka toys, really, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
Some of them stand about 4 stories high.
That's right, and I don't know where they make them. Do they make them in Australia, or do they have to import them, or what?
Oh, that one you've got me. I wouldn't know.
Exactly, yeah. Not your strongest subject on a Wednesday.
Absolutely every question that you ever throw at it,
Exactly. That's right, yeah.
Staggering.
But anyway, you sounding great, Metal, Sandra, and...
Fettel.
Sorry?
Fettel.
Fettel, yes.
Metal.
And metal, yeah.
You can be on your metal.
Yeah, be on your metal. You can be on your metal and in fine Fettel. Yeah. I know you're both of them, so that's all I was going to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that.
Sandra, very, very delightful to talk to you,
Sandra.
as ever. Have a great week. We shall speak to you very soon.
Yeah.
Sandra Lee, they're reporting into us from Australia.
Yes,
Matt says this, I'm not sure on irrigating Australia for the koalas, but send Porky and he can certainly irritate Australia for them.
Oh, yeah, really? That's very nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
very nice. Yeah. Somebody trying to have a go at me again just because I'm trying to, once again introduce a socially responsible policy to save one of the world's most favourite animals.
I think.
Let's all have a laugh about the fact that the koala bear could get wiped out.
Well, you say that.
Within a few years, and nobody cares except the Porkmeister. Come on, mock me for that. Mock me for my social conscience.
First of all, you should know precisely what you're dealing with, and that koalas are vicious, horrible little beasts, and they're far too good at protecting themselves to ever become extinct.
Only
so
in
I don't
your
think you
eyes.
need to worry about it at all.
In your eyes.
And Tracy says this on the subject of straws.
Yeah.
On that topic, she says, I use a straw to drink my hot cocoa.
Yeah.
It helps to disperse the insoluble cocoa solids. Shouldn't you be stirring it better?
I was going to say, get yourself a bigger spoon and stir more frequently. It's idleness not stirring your cocoa and drinking it through a straw. Yes.
There you go. Well, there you are. That's told you then, Tracy, isn't it? We've got lots more coming up, including Porkyvision, not far away.
Yep.
This is TalkSport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
So we may have to investigate the iron ore scenario because it could well be that things are not looking so good again. I wonder, now that this guy's made so much money from iron ore, whether he's now happy to just offload loads of it and hope that whether he doesn't make any more money out in the future, it doesn't really matter.
I don't know about that. Don't know about that.
Okay. All right. What do you know about then?
I know about loads of things.
Yeah.
Some of the things I know about actually are expand people's imagination.
Do they?
Expand people's knowledge. And, in fact, expand their lives. Like, for instance, right, one of the most popular groups over the years has been the Drifters. Do you agree?
The Drifters? What, in recent
Come
years?
on over to my place.
Saturday night at the movies.
Saturday night at the movies.
I mean, I would say that I have not heard a Drifters song for many a year, and I'm not sure that they've even... they may still be going.
Well, you hear them all the time. But
I don't.
Well, you do.
Well, I don't hear them all the time. You must listen to a station that plays them.
Eh?
You must listen to a radio station that plays them. Unless you have their records.
No, I don't have their records.
Well, I have not heard of... I promise you, I have not heard of Drifters.
Everybody knows the Drifters. Anyway, what I was going to say to you was... do you know the Drifters actually consist of maybe 60 members? Because
60?
Yeah, because what happened was, like a lot of groups over the years.
Yeah.
Things like, the disputes they've had when somebody take the Bay City Rollers, right?
Yeah.
And old Les, what's his name? McEwen goes off.
We had him on the show not long ago.
That's right, Les McEwen's Bay City Rollers.
Yeah.
But then there's another group going around somewhere claiming to be the Bay City Rollers as well.
And then they have a big legal dispute.
Yeah, the legal dispute and all that. Well, the Drifters became a franchise, and what happened was, over the years, nearly 60 different singers have taken part in recordings or shows calling themselves the Drifters.
Right.
Drifters founded in 1953.
Yeah. So that's a long time ago. I mean, that's
exactly.
what, 50, 60, that's 64 years ago.
Yeah, rising popularity, and the remaining group members demanded a high share of the royalties and the proceeds from from concert appearances.
Concrete.
Yeah, Now, they spurned, of course, Ben E. King, right? Did you know that?
I wouldn't have said. I thought Ben E. King was a guy who was one of the great guitar legends of music.
Oh, was it? No, it wasn't Benny King. It's some other guy who was a singer with a similar name.
Maybe it was Benny King, like Benny.
Yeah, hang on. Let me see. Let me get this right. Now, here we go.
Yeah, it's very important.
There goes my baby.
Are you sure everybody knows who the Drifters are?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
64 years ago they were formed.
That's right. Now, in the early 70s, the Drifters got a new recording contract, and they were fronted by Johnny Moore, who was one of the original Drifters, right?
Okay.
Who joined, actually, in 1954. Now, they had a load of songs, including There Goes My First Love, Come On Over to My Place.
Yeah, I remember that song.
Kissing in the back row of the movies tonight. Right, and all that, right. Now, who did come out of this who was famous, by the way? Who was the most famous Drifter?
I don't think you can name one. I certainly can't.
Oh, here we go. A recent compilation of former members of the Drifters totaled 68 members altogether.
Right.
68. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But I thought a famous guy came out of it. Who was the most famous Drifter singer?
I don't know. That's what I'm telling you. I have no idea.
Do you know? I don't even know either.
So why are you telling me all this?
There were so many of them around that there were about 2 or 3 different groups calling themselves the Drifters floating around America at the same time.
Yes.
So when you went to see the Drifters...
You don't know which ones you're seeing.
You didn't know whether...
Well, it's kind of a cunning plan, that, in a way. In fact, it may be the best way to run a sort of
a franchise.
A concert company.
That's right, yeah.
Because you can actually play more concerts than you think you could ever do.
No, that's right.
You could be live in New York, Philadelphia, Boston,
I was about
Chicago,
to say,
all at the same time.
Yeah, but you see, America's so big. They're all on the East Coast. You could be live in New York, Fort Worth, Dallas, and San Diego, all on the same night.
Well, I'm saying, why limit it to 3?
Yeah.
You could do 6.
Yeah, most of their songs are written by 2 guys called Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller.
Yes, Lieber and Stoller, I think, are quite famous songwriters.
They're quite famous.
Yeah.
And there's somebody who's just as often doing right. Anyway, look, I thought I'd just let you know that. I don't know why, because I thought...
I have no idea why.
I thought Benny King came out of this.
Not that I know of. I mean, I thought Benny King was a sort of blues guitarist of his own, off his own sort of rights.
Okay, it says here they started off as a doo-woppy-woppy group, okay?
Yes.
Here we go. I've got it. Right, the doo-woppy-woppy group was called the 5 Crowns.
Doo-woppy-woppy.
Yeah, the doo-woppy-woppy group, the 5 Crowns.
Yeah.
They were fronted by singer Benny Nelson.
Benny Nelson.
Right.
Is that Benny as in double N-Y?
Yeah, Benny.
Nothing to do with Benny King.
Well, he became Ben E. King.
Did he?
Yeah, this is it, yeah.
Right.
There's a connection. But you're telling me now Ben E. King was a guitarist.
Well, Ben E. in initial E. King was a guitarist.
Ben E. King was one of the most famous singers in America, and he came out of the Drifters.
Can't be the same guy.
And went off on his own. He did. Ben E. King.
He can't be the same guy.
He came from the doo-woppy-woppy group called the 5 Crowns, who later became the Drifters. Anyway, I don't know why I told you all that, because you don't appreciate the history of...
We're going to sort this out, right?
History of the culture of rock.
Once and for all. We're going to take a call from Alan, who's going to tell us precisely what is the point of all this. Okay. Alan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
What can you help us out with here, Alan?
Well, I met the Drifters in the 1990s. They were performing at the Isle of Wight. Johnny Moore was still the singer.
Okay.
He's the most famous one.
Right.
He died a few years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Benny King was one of the original... Well, not original, one of the early singers.
Yeah.
And the one you were talking about, Mike, the guitarist is B.B. King.
Oh, B.B. King, not Ben E. King.
But isn't there a Ben E. King as well, though?
Yeah, Ben E. King's a singer.
Ben E. King, the man who did Stand By Me.
Stand By Me, yeah.
He was originally with the Drifters.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. That's
in the early days.
That's really...
So he's got nothing to do with B.B. King, obviously.
B.B. King was the one that inspired Eric Clapton, yeah.
That's right.
And Johnny Moore was the most. Well, he was the original, and he was probably the most famous singer. He's on most of the records, I think.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell you, I on the Isle of Wight ferry, I had the privilege of buying him a steak and kidney pie and a can of Coke.
Really?
And he said, why are you buying me this? I said, well, you've not had many hits lately. And he just laughed and punched me.
Punch you? That's on the arm. That's
well, I mean,
nice.
I suppose you're lucky to have met the main sort of incarnation of the Drifters, because it could have been some other lesser crested member of the Drifters.
I must admit, I think 2 or 3 of the others, the rest of them, they look like children.
Right.
So they're obviously the new element of it, you know.
Yeah. I tell you,
what was their big hit that you saw them do at the Isle of Wight then?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see them. I was working as an entertainer too. I was coming back to the mainland.
Oh, I see. So you
about 2 in the morning, I met them on the ferry.
Oh, I see. But you weren't a huge fan or anything.
Not particularly. No, I mean, I used to sing some of their songs in my act.
Did you? That's amazing.
Yeah,
Did you ever sing "Stand by Me"?
No, that was Benny
with
King.
difficulty, because it was in a dodgy key for me.
Yeah, all right.
No, with the thing with the Drifters, I mean, there are so many. Saturday night at the movies.
Yes.
I don't know.
Come on over to my place.
Yeah.
Come on over to my place. That's the one I used to sing a lot. Yeah.
Was it? Come on over to my place.
What about the Under the Boardwalk? Didn't they do that as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a funny thing, because people used to ask me to sing that, but they always said it wrong, and they said, "Can you do that one, Under the Broadwalk?"
Under the Broadwalk, I see. Yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you something else.
In North London, and there was a Broadwalk, which was like a millionaire's row, and it just used to make me laugh.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you something else, Alan. You talk about Benny King and "Stand by Me." Did you know that "Stand by Me" was the only record that John Lennon covered from another artist, because he admired the song so much?
Yeah, he did it on that.
That's a great version of it, actually.
He did a fantastic version of it. Yeah, when
on the rock and roll album, he did a lot, didn't he? Of the old songs.
He
did. That "Stand by Me," Benny King said that he just wrote that.
Yeah.
Just I can't remember now, but he was a bit down, and he just sort of did it. And he said it was like a pension for him, because it was a hit for a few years.
It was, and it was a very down song. It was, when the night comes in and you're all alone and all that kind of thing. "Stand by Me," brilliant. Well, Alan, I want to thank you very much indeed for calling us.
Thank
you very much indeed.
There's somebody out there we still don't know why Porky started talking about it.
Yeah.
Also, I can tell you, by the way, that Lieber and Stoller, the people you talked about, who wrote a lot of the Drifters songs, were very, very famous songwriters in their own right.
They were, yeah.
They weren't part of the Drifters. They also wrote Hound Dog.
Yeah.
They also wrote
for Elvis Presley.
For Elvis, they also wrote Jailhouse. They also wrote Jailhouse Rock.
Did they?
They also wrote King Creole.
Wow.
And they also wrote a Stand by Me with Benny King.
Did they? Fantastic.
They wrote Spanish Harlem.
You're having me on.
No. They've been inducted into the Hall of Fame.
In Spanish Harlem.
Yeah. They also sang Yakety Yak. They also did Yakety Yak.
No, not Yakety Yak.
Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown worked with Phil Spector.
Well, Charlie Brown, the theme tune to the the basketball mob.
Hey?
The great basketball entertainers.
You mean, the Meadowlark Lemon and all that?
Yeah. What were they called?
The Harlem Globetrotters.
The Harlem Globetrotters, that was their theme song, wasn't it?
Well, could well be. Could well be.
With sweet Martha Brown.
They're certainly very, very certain. No, it's not Charlie Brown, is it?
Yeah, well, it's close. But they're very prolific songwriters, aren't they?
They are.
There goes my baby. That was one of theirs.
Should you ever listen to that John Lennon song after the news?
Yeah, certainly will. Yeah.
That'll be good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What else we got coming up? We got the Porkyvision coming up. Can you tell us what you're going to be talking about? Or can you tell us what you've been watching on your brand new television?
No. I think we'll wait until we actually get there. I don't want to sort of burn too many bridges before we get there. Listen, I tell you what I came across, by the way. I've told you about my my charitable donations.
Which charitable donations?
Well, this is what I'm saying. I cut off all charitable donations to big international charities and all that. Now, it's been the Chelsea Flower Show this week.
Yes.
Now, there's
funnily enough, the only reason I knew that is when we went to do Sky last Monday.
Yes.
I drove past it. And it was all ready. I've never been to the Chelsea Flower Show.
I have. It's massive. It's
incredible.
I know.
To the
Chelsea Hospital.
Well, it's an incredible sort of massive area that they put all the marquees up in. But I've never actually been inside it.
Now, there's a guy called James Batson, right? And he's an award-winning gardener. He won the gold medal for his Chelsea gardens in 2013, 2015 and 2016, okay?
Yeah, right.
And, he's done very well and all that kind of stuff. Now, he's got 2 homes, one up here in London, one down on the coast. And the only charity he contributes to is to the RNLI, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, because where he lives there is a lifeboat station, and he contributes directly to that lifeboat station.
Oh, so he just gives money directly to them?
Absolutely, because they're funded on nothing but charitable donations. He refuses to do it even through the charity nationally.
Yes.
He says, you want my money, it goes directly to my local station. I can see how they use it and how they upkeep the boat.
Yes.
That is a brilliant way to give money to charity.
It certainly is, because it cuts out the middleman, as you said before. We've got lots more coming up, of course. We are the Two Mikes. This is Talk Sport.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. Though I won't be afraid, no, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me.
Kira says this. Benny King also did a version of Stand By Me with my favourite band, the Def Leppard Guitar Players, in 1988, I think she said.
Really?
On YouTube, yeah.
Was Def Leppard the group that had a one-armed drummer?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he had a car crash in his Porsche, lost one of his arms.
Lost one of his arms, that's right.
Quite remarkable.
People always accuse us of homing in on Lennon, but I mean, you're absolutely right. That was one of the great versions of classic
I think it's
song,
terrific. I think it's the best version of
it.
That I've heard.
And you said, Lennon's voice gritty and scouse and all that kind of stuff. But it was the accompaniment, wasn't it? Whoever was playing that, sort of acoustic guitar.
Well, it was him, wasn't it?
No, he was playing a piano.
Really?
I've seen the
really?
the video of it. Yeah.
Sounds to me like he would be playing the guitar on that.
I agree with that.
Could be in the video that he's playing the piano, but I mean, it sounds like that sounds like his guitar style to me.
The version that I've seen, he's leaning right across the piano to a microphone. You know what I mean? And almost with his hands at his shoulder, so to speak. But anyway, you're right.
But terrific. A couple of people saying that album, Rock and Roll, was one of the albums that he did lots of other covers on. So it wasn't the only song that he did cover.
Well, what I was going to say was that was the only one that was released as a single. That was the point. Yeah.
Could well be.
Yeah.
David says this. Bill Pinkney, last survivor of the original members of the Drifters, died July the 4th, 2007.
Did he?
He was 81.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. They've been around for a long time.
They certainly have.
But certainly in my youth, my disco era. Come on over to my place.
Yes. Well, Phil says this, though. He says, the Drifters, Porky, most recent. Can someone please bring Porky into the 21st century?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. No, the point is that what used to happen in the discos of my disco era was all those classic songs were, put on halfway through the night because the young ladies got all smoochy about them, came onto the dance floor, and that was the whole idea, to get things moving.
Was this after you'd taken one of them to see Emmanuel, as you pointed out earlier?
No, I don't think so, no.
That was great.
Yeah, well,
a revelation. How many times did you go to Emmanuel with different women?
No, I only went once.
Only once?
With my girlfriend at the time,
It was the way you said it. It sounded as though it was a sort of a ploy of yours.
Oh, I see. No.
Like Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. He takes what's the face to the movie theatre in 42nd Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Have you seen Taxi Driver?
I haven't seen Taxi Driver.
You haven't seen Taxi Driver?
No, I haven't, no.
Okay.
I remember the famous expression about it. You talking to me? Is that it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Listen, you said that Bill Pinkney, but you didn't tell me there's a great picture here of Bill Pinkney, died at 81. Yeah. Blimey, what an impressive man in his gold lame jacket.
Well, you could say that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't ever want to wear one of those, would you?
Sorry?
You wouldn't ever want to wear one of those.
No, you wouldn't want to wear one of those. No, you're absolutely right. Now then, tell you what I want to talk to you about.
Go on.
Right, I want to talk to you about the film, David Beckham.
Oh, do you?
Because although we had Brian Viner, the Daily Mail film critic, on
last Saturday
when we were at Wembley, we are privileged tonight to have our own film critic in the studio. young John.
Mr. John Hearn.
John.
I'll tell you what, hot-footing it, having been at the Cannes Film Festival.
Absolutely.
I can tell you. In fact, where's where Brian Viner was a great picture, which John put out on Facebook.
Yes.
A while ago. I'm going to show it to you in a minute.
That's good, yeah.
From when he was down on a yacht in the Cannes
on a yacht,
Film Festival. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm going to show you this picture.
Right.
I mean, you would not recognise
Well, while
him.
you're doing that, I'll say welcome to John. John, welcome to the studio. Thanks
now,
for
look
coming.
at this picture here. Now, you would think that was a budding young film producer, wouldn't you?
You certainly would, indeed, yeah. Who's provided that glass of wine for you?
The people who own the yacht.
Oh, right, excellent. Yeah, invited you on board.
Pay for drinks at the Cannes Film Festival.
Well,
you do look the part, I must say, whatever the part is, but you do look the part.
I do scrub up occasionally.
You do?
Yes, excellent. Right, well, that's great. Tell us about your adventures there later. But, John, the film that we're talking about, King Arthur, right, we didn't get a lot of time with Brian because he was down in Cannes and we were at Wembley and there was so much going on. But what is your view of exactly what the mission was for making that film and how did it go so badly wrong?
Well, I suppose if you want to know what the mission for making that film... the people who made the film would say it probably went right because the way that Guy Ritchie pitched it to Warner Brothers was Game of Thrones. Sorry, no, not Game of Thrones. Lord of the Rings crossed with Snatch, one of his earlier films.
Right, yeah. So sort of two gun-smoking barrels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
a sort of a Cockney gangster version of Lord of the Rings. Well, that's exactly what you get.
Yeah.
It has very, very little to do with the King Arthur legend. There are characters... with the correct names, and there's a scene where he pulls a sword out of a stone, obviously. But that's pretty much it. There's nothing else that connects it to the Arthurian legend. And it's just like a lot of CGI, a lot of computer-generated images and visual effects, very much like Lord of the Rings, Game of the Thrones, things like that, but done with very broad Cockney accents.
Right.
And you have characters talking. There's one point where King Arthur says, somebody asks him a question, and he says, "No, I don't think so, mate."
That's King Arthur.
That's King Arthur, yeah.
Oh, golly.
I mean, have we got any of this that we can listen to?
No, because the trailers, very cleverly, have been edited in such a way not to include any of the Cockney accents. So the trailers are very heavy on Jude Law, who's playing King Arthur's brother. The actual story is a complete copy of The Lion King, which in itself is a takeoff of Hamlet, but it's a complete copy of The Lion King. You have a king and his brother, a benevolent king, and his wicked brother, played by Jude Law, who the wicked brother usurps the king, and the young son of the usurped king is then sent away and goes into exile and is raised not knowing that he's actually a prince, then realises who he is, comes back and reclaims the throne. It's exactly the same as The Lion King.
Right.
So, without the Hakuna Matata.
Without the fun songs in it,
So the classic expression, it seemed like a good idea at the time, will be what the film studio bosses who put up $135 million are now thinking, yeah?
It's reportedly more than that, $175 million. I have no idea why they thought this would be a good idea. Probably because the Sherlock Holmes, the two films that Guy Ritchie did, the Sherlock Holmes films, were successful. But the difference with those is that, yes, they had Jude Law, but they also had Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. is one, a great actor, and two, not doing a Cockney voice, right?
Exactly, and Robert Downey Jr. can make any film look good. He can make the Iron Man films look good.
Right,
I mean, he can make anything look good. And so I think they probably thought, well, Guy Ritchie's had a bit of success, and that's the way Hollywood works. If you've had a bit of success, they give you money. As soon as you don't have success, they get a bit edgy about it.
In one report I read of it, one critique of it said that Guy Ritchie has now just reached a level playing field of the sort of tricks he puts into films and all the tricks in editing and splitting and putting back together again. They said he's done it a dozen times before and they're no longer effective.
Exactly, and very much. And within the first 15 minutes, it reverts to one of his stock trade montages where you have one character explaining the backstory, and then it very rapidly cuts to quick images of somebody, giving the conversation, explaining what is going on in backflashes, and there's at one point where one character is explaining something, and somebody else goes, "Hold on a minute, explain that again," and then they cut back to the images and then show the images in reverse as though they're rewinding the film, and That, for me, that was the moment when I just lost interest, and that was after about 15 minutes.
And has all that been done before in Guy Ritchie films?
All the time, yeah. That's his stock trade, this kind of very fast editing of montagey sequence of backstory. But it just doesn't work. I don't know why they called it King Arthur other than to advertise it. Just call it Legend of the Sword and make it a fantasy film.
And make it a fantasy film, yeah. But also, in America, as you know, John, and Mike does as well, I mean, if you do anything in kind of a dialect... It doesn't ever really cross over anyway, because it might work in New York in some trendy theatre, but it doesn't work in Des Moines, Iowa, does it?
Well, no, which is why it bombed in America. It took $15 million and it got beaten by a comedy with Amy Schumer in its first weekend, and it will die a death in America. They just won't get it.
And what will the impact be on Guy Ritchie's reputation and future?
Probably in the short term, nothing, because he's already signed up to do a third Sherlock Holmes film, and after that he's planned to do, or he's been approached by Disney to do the live action version of Aladdin.
Yeah.
So it probably won't affect him. If those two bomb as well, then he'll be in trouble.
I see. So these
he's not going to have to sell the Wiltshire estate anytime
soon. Yeah, exactly. Given to him by Madonna, or in an agreement with Madonna. So these great producers, maybe even including Spielberg, they are allowed the occasional turkey, are they?
If you make one mistake, it's kind of where everybody, because there's no hard and fast rules. There are a lot of things you can do to try and make a film successful, but nobody knows the magic formula. So therefore, a failure is acceptable.
Right.
But if you have a succession of failures, then Hollywood gets
problem.
A bit tetchy, and you're less likely to get a chance to make something else, or you have to go back. A bit like M. Night Shyamalan. He started out having massive success with his first film, and then everyone since he's gone. The budget's got a little bit smaller, because he just can't replicate that first success.
Right. Okay.
Great. Interesting stuff. Well, thank you, John.
All right, John, thank you very much indeed for enlightening me.
You'll get your other stories from Can out of you and maybe another time.
Yes, indeed.
Because we're out of time, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
This is the TalkSport radio station. We're also simulcasting on Talk Radio as well. We are the Two Mics.
The Two Mics. Simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
Up on the roof, up on the roof. When this old world starts getting me down, and people are just too much for me to face, up on the roof, I climb way up to the top of the stairs, and all my cares just drift right into space.
Well, I suppose we have to have a Drifters song eventually.
Yeah,
I must say, I mean, having said I haven't heard many Drifters songs for a long time, now having heard, a couple, I mean, they're good.
Oh, of course they're good.
They do sort of brighten up your mood, don't they?
Well, yeah, they were written by those great singer-songwriters that we talked to you about. Listen, talking about musicians and music, did you ever get into Morrissey?
Not particularly. The Smiths,
was he in the Smiths?
He was the Smiths, yeah. And then he went out on his own and he called himself Morrissey. And I've always thought of him as a bit of a belligerent, kind of miserable, nasty piece of work.
But is that an act or
no, not at all. No, that's the way he is.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, he put out a Facebook post about Manchester the other day, which got quite a lot of play on social media, and a couple of papers picked it up as well.
Yes,
in which he was more or less having a go at all the politicians, saying, it's all very well for you lot saying that you're going to get protection and you're going to put the army outside of Westminster and all that, but what about the rest of us?
Yes,
he's a very unhappy character. And I think I don't think anyone would be surprised with me to say that.
Yeah,
he's got lots of issues, and he's a very angry guy. And some of his music I quite like.
Yeah,
but I've never been a massive fan of his.
No, well, I've never heard anything he's written, but I've seen him on a few things. Like there's a program on BBC called The One Show.
Yes,
and he turned up on the couch there one time, and I just thought he was this very odd character trying to draw attention to himself.
Well, I mean, he's very famous for saying things like "meat is murder," and he's very.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, I found in last weekend's newspapers there was an interview with him, right? And it does reveal a bit of a bizarre guy. So he's asked, tell us a secret about yourself. He said, I've never had a cup of coffee in my entire life.
Right.
Well, I've never had an egg. I've never eaten an egg because I don't like eggs. Perhaps he doesn't like coffee.
Yeah, maybe.
And then it goes on to, what is your guiltiest pleasure? And he says, I know every episode of The Big Valley, line by line. I know all the dialogue. Isn't it helpful?
The Big Valley, is that a movie?
No, the big valley, as I remember, was Barbara Stanwyck in a sort of Western series.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he lists it here between 65 and 69.
Oh, right, okay.
It's so long ago.
Oh, I never saw it.
And Barbara Stanwyck is famous for having once been the girlfriend of Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, certainly know Barbara Stanwyck.
Yeah,
but I don't know the show.
But then he's asked other questions, like, when was the last TV show you loved? And this gets to what you've just mentioned. He says, I don't watch TV. I will not tolerate the incessant McDonald's and KFC chicken commercials because they're death commercials, which I find immoral.
Yeah. Well, because he's very much a pro-vegetarian. I mean, he's a sort of what you might call a sort of guerrilla vegetarianism type. You know?
When asked what one law would you change, he said all meat products should have a meat kills government health warning because meat production kills the consumer. It kills the planet, it kills animals. Why is it legal in any form whatsoever? Since meat causes more damage than tobacco, why is there only a health warning on tobacco? But then he goes on to some very weird things. Who would your dream dinner date be?
Yeah.
He says, I've never been on a date, so I don't even know what a date is.
I've never been on a date? Well, that's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's a very introverted, sort of dark character.
Yeah. He's then asked, have you ever had a nickname?
Yeah.
He said, I was never popular enough at school or in my youth to have a nickname.
Oh, dear.
Right?
Sounds like a nightmare to interview this guy.
Yeah. What's the best kiss you've ever had? He said, none, ever. Right?
Really?
I don't know whether he's saying he's never had a kiss or he's never had a decent kiss or something.
Or maybe he just doesn't want to reveal that part of his life or something.
What is the worst pain you've experienced? And this is where I thought he's really losing the plot and trying to be something he's not.
Yeah.
Being a teenager in 70s Manchester.
Yeah.
That's the worst pain I've ever experienced.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should try Aleppo.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You know?
But anyway,
he's a bit self-indulgent, I would say.
Well,
Morrissey.
I would say that was a bit self-indulgent.
A lot of people who are fans of the Smiths are quite fanatical about the time that the Smiths were big from Manchester, the meaning of the songs. You know, a lot of people who are slightly younger than me, I would say, will tell you that they became sort of free by listening to the Smiths, and it was an incredible time in their lives, and they thought it was really cool.
They were liberated.
Yes, well, they felt liberated by the Smiths because of the way that they approached life. But I kind of missed out on that. But I don't. Some of their music's okay, but not really all of it. I would say, and I'm not a massive fan. Right. Mathieu says this: anyone who thinks John Lennon's version of "Stand By Me" is a classic must have mutton chops for ears.
Why?
Well, I would say Mathieu. That actually, what I said, I'm not saying it's a classic of any kind necessarily, but for me, the best version of Stand By Me, I just think it's great.
I do as well. I think it's absolutely terrific.
Yes.
But then again, I am a big John Lennon fan, so I would say that, wouldn't I?
Stoddard says, Porky doesn't need to see Taxi Driver, he's lived it.
Have I?
Well, I don't know what he means by that.
Well, exactly.
I think
as
that's
I don't know the plot, I couldn't comment.
I think it's a compliment. William says, when River Phoenix appeared in the film Stand By Me a few years later, his life was tragically cut short by a drug overdose. It certainly was. Well, River Phoenix died outside a place called the Viper Rooms.
That's right, he did.
In Los Angeles, where I have been.
Yes.
And I could tell you a story about that another time. But
right, okay.
But yeah, what I wanted to ask you about, though, was the situation at Crystal Palace, because we talked about this the other night. Sam Allardyce unexpectedly quit the job. We still don't know quite why. We still not absolutely sure whether we're going to be surprised by some other announcement by Sam Allardyce in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we certainly don't have any idea why he's walked away.
No, we don't.
People at Crystal Palace, I'm told, don't really know either.
No, they don't.
But your old mate Roy Hodgson is hovering about.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't that ridiculous?
I tell you what, it happened. He was at the League Managers Association annual dinner the other night.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of my friends went to that, and saw him, there. And he was interviewed by Sky, because Sky always go along to these because they know there's a collection of managers there, so it was worth talking to. Yeah. And they asked Roy about Sam's position. Well, Stan was at the dinner as well, so I'm not sure whether you should talk about a colleague like that when know there are only a few tables
Was this
away.
after Sam had already said he was quitting?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay.
And he said, well, of course, each manager has to deal with the strains and stresses of the job in their own particular way.
Yeah.
And then the interviewer, quite rightly, said, well, Roy, they're looking for a new manager now. Would you fancy it? And he said, well, I'm not short of a job, he said, but then, if jobs are around...
He's not short of a job. Is he still doing that thing in Australia?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
But then he said, but if I was asked to be considered, well, I would, and I can't. I mean, completely deluded.
No, yeah.
In my view, Roy Hodgson is a busted flush.
No.
Now,
but there are still people, and I mean, I've heard them on Talk Sport saying, don't forget he did a great job at Fulham. And you go, what?
Well,
okay.
Danny says that. Danny Murphy, our friend.
It wasn't actually Danny who said it, but it was somebody else saying it. Because he has that reputation. That, what a great job he did at Fulham.
Yeah, that's right.
And West Brom.
Yeah, he still didn't win anything there, but he got close, I admit. But no, the situation with Sam, as I can make out, is he simply hasn't got over leaving the England job. He just couldn't get over it.
Right.
And that managing again in the Premier League was no substitute for it. You see what I mean?
Right.
And so he's now decided almost I'd prefer retirement because the pain.
Do you think from the point of view of sort of his I don't know, elevation in the football world as England manager?
Yes.
He will never achieve that.
Well, he'll never get it back now. No. And it was his lifelong ambition. He got it. And you've got to remember that even though people question, the validity of the England job and how many games you look after a year and how many days a week do you work and all that, you are still the number one manager in this country if you're the England manager.
And if you're into that kind of thing, which I guess you might say Sam Allardyce is, he quite likes being bigged up by people.
Yeah.
He would be sort of the quintessential head of the football business.
Yes, that's
in
right.
England.
He would,
wouldn't he?
And so he has to leave the England job because of circumstances we all know about. He then goes back into the Premier League, does a very good job there and saves Palace from relegation. And I think he's proved his point. You see what I mean? I could still have been a great England manager.
Right.
And I think now, I don't know whether he's going to go away for a year and see how Stuart Pearce does as England manager and then reflect on, what the future might hold.
You mean Gareth Southgate?
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Stuart Pearce.
I'm sorry, I meant Gareth Southgate.
Stuart
I don't know
Pearce
why.
Works here.
I had Stuart Pearce's face in my head.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
He used to be the under-23
Why would
coach,
you ever have Stuart? You said Gareth Pearce's face in your head.
Yeah.
Why would you have Stuart Pearce's face in your head?
Just would.
Well, what I'm hearing now from Crystal Palace is that they're quite now interested in hiring the guy from Hull, who's of course left Hull.
What's his name again?
His name is Marco Silva.
Yeah, Marco Silva is definitely a candidate, and they want to, as I understand it, they want to resolve it as quickly as possible, possibly by Friday this week. But the other...
But he's also been tapped up by Porto.
He has been tapped up by
Porto. I believe he's been offered the job by Porto.
I think he has.
And he is Portuguese, so he might want to go back there.
Yeah, the other candidates have to be Nigel Pearson, but he looks as though he might be heading to Sunderland.
Right.
But the outside candidate, but my antennae are up on this one, is Chris Coleman, the Welsh manager. Because
whose name has come up a few times when the Swansea job came up, his name was in the frame for that.
Yeah.
And I think his name was in the frame for the Hull job at one point.
It was. The connection with Palace is, Chris used to play for Palace, of course.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he was with Palace when he had that terrible leg break in a car crash, which virtually ended his career, I think. But not only that, but of course, he did live for a long time in Surrey, very close to Crystal Palace.
Not a million miles from you.
He lived in the road next to my sister.
Yeah.
In a village called Kingswood.
Yes.
And I know for a fact, because I still occasionally see him, he still has roots there, So that wouldn't be an uncomfortable move for him geographically to get back to that part of the world.
No, indeed.
And of course, he's a terrific manager.
Yeah.
And he's proved himself. And that, to me, would make complete sense.
Well, we may, in fact, have some news on that, I suppose, before the end of the week, before we do our warm-up show at Wembley on Saturday.
That's right.
From 1 to 4. By the way, I'm also looking at another story, which I may talk to you later on about how the security at Wembley is a complete shambles.
Well, that's a report, isn't it, in tomorrow morning's papers. Yeah. And I suppose in the light of what's happened in Manchester, everybody is re-examining security measures around big crowds. They have to.
Exactly right. This is Talk Sport.
As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but wasn't there a previous series?
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's the problem?
That music can only mean one thing, of course. It means that it's time for Porkyvision, the TV review that you will not want to miss. Porky was telling us earlier in the week that he's now got a whole array of great new equipment, which means that Porkyvision will become even more, I suppose, all singing and all dancing than it was before.
Absolutely.
Complete with sound bar.
Absolutely. Complete with sound bar. Now then, let me tell you that there's one show which everybody's raving about, which I think is utter rubbish.
Yeah.
And it's called The Durrells.
The Durrells?
Yeah, the Durrells.
I don't know that one.
Sorry, the Durrells.
What,
right?
as in Lawrence Durrell?
Hey?
Is it anything to do with Lawrence Durrell?
Lawrence Durrell, who's he?
Was he not the guy? Was he not connected to All Creatures Great and Small or something like
that? No. This there's a Gerald Durrell, isn't there?
There's a Gerald Durrell,
yeah. But that's nothing to do with it. These Durrells...
Who's Lawrence Durrell? Am I making that up?
I don't know. Now, these Durrells people, okay, let me tell you that it just doesn't work.
Right.
Now, the basic plot behind this is this very attractive woman, right, has a husband who's a bit of an ogre.
Yeah.
And they live in, like, somewhere like Purley.
Okay.
In suburban Surrey.
Suburban Squire, famous place.
Yeah. Sort of suburban London, Greater London, Surrey, you know.
Right.
And
Sutton. Like that.
No, not Sutton, no, Purley. And he dies, and she's got like this, menagerie of like 4 or 5 children who are all, individually sort of, what's the word? Dysfunctional.
Okay.
Dysfunctional family.
Right.
And then she finds out when her husband's died that he actually hasn't got any money. So they're broke, and he's never made any preparations for them and all that. He dies suddenly, they have to sell the house.
Right.
So she says, "We'll go to Corfu."
Uh-huh.
So they go to Corfu, and then really what the story's based on is they get this rambling old house in Corfu.
Right.
It's fallen to bits.
Do they buy it? Or?
No, they have to rent it,
Okay.
and rent it off some local landowner.
Yeah.
And, of course, the window shutters drop off all the time, and the Arga doesn't work. And it's not an Arga, there's like an oven.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Right.
And strange and odd Greek people just wander into the house and wander out again.
Yeah.
And they haven't got any food or money. And the children go off and...
how old are the kids? Are they sort of
Well,
young?
they range from about sort of 12 or 13. Right. Some really snotty-nosed little kid who pretends to... who has this interest in nature, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And goes off and sort of finds tadpoles and all this kind of stuff, you know. Right up to, like, a guy who's the eldest son who wants to be a playwright and but none of them earn any money.
Yeah.
They haven't got any money. And the plot is the same in every episode. Finding a way to make money and doing things like, going and catching fish and selling them at the local market and being found, that everybody's selling it cheaper and all. It's
Sounds
rubbish.
very bizarre.
Oh, it's drivel. It's rubbish. But it's supposed to be charming, the charming life of a British family abroad, you know what I mean? And she's a very attractive woman.
Anyone in it that we would know?
Well, yeah, she's good. She's good. I don't know what her name is because I've forgotten because it's drivel. I don't like watching it. Yeah. But... it's rubbish, not worth watching. It's on Sunday at 8 o'clock.
Okay, I'll definitely not watch that.
Don't watch that, okay.
I won't bother.
Now
what's good to watch?
Now, what is good to watch?
I've been watching Versailles, actually.
No, I can't stand Versailles.
No?
Everybody watches it because they think it's going to be full of sort of semi-porno sexual activity.
That's not why I watch it.
And quite frankly, I find the whole thing moves at such a slow pace, I cannot watch it. I cannot watch it. Now, Grantchester, I've told you about.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse,
Well, there's plenty of Rogerisation going on there, isn't there?
Well, there's plenty of Rogerisation going on between a vicar and a married woman, which the bishop doesn't like, and he gets so confused, he pushes off. But the plot in the last episode was utterly ridiculous.
Was it?
He goes off and decides to join a Romany camp, okay?
Oh, yeah. Right.
This is the vicar.
Yeah.
And he's gone to this Romany camp to try and get the money back from the head Romany, who is a bigamist and who used to not be a Romany.
Right.
He used to be the husband of the woman who runs the vicarage in Grantchester.
Blimey.
So he's gone off and found him.
Yeah.
But then he gets murdered by some guy who smashes his head open. And he's lying in state in one of the Romany caravans. And they all say stupid Romany things like, we bury our dead before day goes down.
Oh, yeah.
Read over his body. And he says, well, I can't. I don't know if he's a consecrated Christian or something like that. So read over his body, give him the passage.
This is all a bit stereotyped.
Oh, terribly stereotyped. And then... they start a fire and they start throwing all his belongings on the fire.
Right.
And he's saying, "What are you doing? This is what we do. We are Romanies," and all this. Honestly, it's utter drivel and rubbish.
Okay.
And that's
when's that on? Is that Sunday night as well?
That's Sunday night. I think that follows the
two
Durrells.
shows on Sunday night.
Yeah, the Durrells at 8 o'clock, rubbish.
Right.
Grantchester, 9 o'clock, rubbish.
Right.
Before those two... There's a show on at 7 o'clock called Big Heads, right?
Big Heads.
This is on the same channel.
Okay.
And this is Jason Manford, who I think is, quite a commendable comedian,
Okay.
and he's got a bit of a track record of upsetting people occasionally, that kind of stuff.
I'm not a big fan of his, to be honest.
Well, I'm not either, but I don't get why anybody watches this show, because what happens is... It's called Big Heads because you get a load of people doing things that you used to do in things like, the Eddie Waring show.
Eddie Waring?
Yeah, you know.
Well, the Up and Under.
Up and Under,
Oh,
yeah. He used to host that show with the pervert Stuart, what's his name? You know the guy I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And what was it called?
It's
Celebrity Knockout.
It's a knockout.
It's a knockout, right? So what they do is they've recreated.
Eddie Waring and the pervert. It's got a great ring to it, hasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So they recreate this type of thing.
Right.
It's a knockout
Right.
by getting people to try and run up a platform that's coming down the other way.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
More like a sort of cakewalk type staircase thing.
And then getting them to walk across a lake on floating buoys, which the minute you tread on them, turn over.
I've seen a show like this where you're jumping across like an area where you could fall into the water.
That's right, and all
you've got
this
these big balls you have to jump across.
Yeah, that's right, and all that. But
that's been going for a while, isn't it?
No, but the reason this is different is because everybody who takes part, who are just ordinary members of the public, have to wear a huge head of a famous celebrity, like Donald Trump, or like funny enough, Sir Roger Moore, or something like that.
Right.
And that's the only difference to It's a Knockout.
How bizarre!
And I just don't get it.
Well, they're always trying to come up with these new ways of making a game show different, aren't they?
That's why it's called Big Heads, because you just
you wear a big head.
Yeah, what you were doing 40 years ago, except you do it with a big head on, so that's rubbish as well. You know, and so that means on a Sunday night, as far as I'm concerned, there ain't anything worth watching at all. Complete write-off.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go back to the days when we had Heartbeat on a Sunday night.
Sunday night sounds pretty dreadful, to be honest.
Or All Creatures Great and Small. Didn't that used to fascinate you?
No, I never liked that show.
I loved All Creatures Great and Small. I loved Heartbeat on a Sunday night.
No,
I
tell you
loved
what,
Sunday night shows.
I used to like watching Homeland on a Sunday night, but that's finished now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's rather more adult, isn't it? But when I used to get home from, a hard day's labour in Fleet Street and all that on a Sunday, I used to love sitting down watching one of those comfort shows, you know what I mean? However, there is a brilliant show that I've watched this week, and it's called Inspector George Gently.
Oh, yes.
And this is brilliant.
But that's another show that's set in the past, isn't it?
Well, there's so many shows that are set in the past now.
Yeah.
It's set in the funny enough, well, they brought it back for 2 episodes, right, after they'd said it had finished. And they brought it back distinctly to put it into the 1970s.
Right.
So the first episode is just after Christmas 1969. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really good. It's set in the northeast, Durham, actually, rather than Newcastle. But they go all over the northeast, a bit like Vera. But the strange thing is, Martin Shaw is Inspector George Gently.
Right.
And he's got a sidekick called Lee Ingleby. No, sidekick is actually the actor is called Lee Ingleby.
Okay.
But he's called Inspector Bacchus.
Bacchus. As in the wine god.
Yeah, well, Bacchus is a very famous northeast name because, as you quite rightly say, it was given to them by the Danish invaders.
Oh, the Romans.
No, the Danish invaders, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, they're the same wine god, right? But anyway, what I couldn't quite understand is it was a plot about a bloke's body being found in a closing down. I mean, so much industry closed down in the northeast, and this factory's being sold to some German operation. So they're checking all the bits of the factory, and they find a dead body from years ago. And it turns out, that a woman has been sent to jail for the murder of her husband, but she's not guilty. And Inspector George Gently uncovers all this.
Right.
But during the course of it, it's discovered that Lee Ingleby, who's Bacchus, Inspector Bacchus, was the cop in charge of the case all those years ago, who bent the evidence to put this woman in jail.
Oh, dear.
Because he was under pressure to get a conviction.
Yes.
So he's had to come clean, and Inspector George Gently said, "You disgust me," and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But that's how it's been left. Right. I don't know why this guy's not in court for perverting the course of justice.
But this is quite a good show, you think?
Oh, it's very good, yeah. But it's made by George Gently, who is played by Martin Shaw, who's a great actor, from The Professionals.
Okay.
But the side...
He's been around a long time, hasn't he?
Been around a long time. Judge John Deed.
Does he still have the big shocking head of hair, or is it kind of...
gone white.
It's all gone white.
Gone white, time has taken its toll.
Zoggy the Gooner says, "Porky, you plank, the Durrells is based on a true story, and Gerald Durrell is the youngest boy."
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right, so what does that mean that he grew up and wrote about it then?
Well, he
must have done, I suppose.
Well, I guess he grew up in Corfu then.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, all right. But it's still rubbish.
Yeah.
But anyway,
there you go, Gerald.
So what happens here is that the side plot is that George Gently is on the brink of retirement. And senior officers want to push him out.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's like the police equivalent of a bed blocker, you know what I mean?
Yes.
They want to start promoting officers from beneath him and below him and all that kind of stuff, you know. And one officer in particular, you know, you get a sort of strange feeling about him, you know, sends a shiver down your spine, Assistant Chief Constable, who's sort of trying to paw the female officers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, shocking.
Very, very 70s-ish. But a great show. And then what's happened is there was going to be a sequel this coming weekend.
Yeah.
But then the election was called.
Yes.
And they've had to postpone the sequel because, apparently the plot of it is centred around a corruption within a parliamentary election.
Oh, right.
And they felt that it would, you know, infringe upon the practices that you and I have to follow. You know, as broadcasters, in the Ofcom rules and all that kind of stuff.
Well, even though it's a fictitious story.
Yeah.
That's mad, isn't it?
I know, yeah. But, well, it actually, I think it actually names one of the parties or the other as being corrupt. And people felt, well, you know, the audience might start thinking it's real.
Yeah.
But, I mean, look, there was nothing really worth watching over the last couple of weeks, except that I expected yours gently, because I just didn't get on with, what's her name? Grantchester.
No.
Or the Durrells. Or Big Heads.
No.
Or anything else I watched, frankly.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty poor showing this week, then.
Pretty poor showing, I have to say,
Time for the TV companies to buck their ideas up.
Yeah, buck their ideas up. That's what I'd say.
Decent for us to watch, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That was, of course, Porkyvision.
Porkyvision.
Same time next
I didn't
week.
watch, by the way, Prince Philip's 70 Years of Service. That would have bored me to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want
would
that.
have bored you to death, wouldn't
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah. Didn't bother with that.
Sport.
Yeah.
You don't even know what this is, right? Bet you any money. I mean, I've never heard this song before.
It sounds like John Lennon to me.
It's Paul McCartney.
It's Paul McCartney?
Yeah.
Singing what?
Singing Ode to a Koala Bear, believe it or not.
My God.
Which John has found on some solo album of Paul McCartney's.
Wow,
I mean, never let it be said that Paul McCartney wrote some really mindless rubbish after he left the Beatles.
Well,
Ode to a Koala Bear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Do you know, I've never heard that before, because I bought most of Paul McCartney's solo albums anyway. Yeah,
well, have a listen to see if you can find it, because, I mean, like everything else that he's done, it's quite pleasant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Quite pleasant.
Yeah.
Apparently it was the B-side to Say, Say, Say.
Oh, yes, Say.
Which you remember?
Say he did with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And that was 1983.
Yeah.
Because I was in America at the time.
Well, he didn't spend much time doing Ode to a Koala Bear, did he?
No, he didn't. No.
But I mean, they're always quite pleasant songs. You just kind of think, surely you could do better than this.
You know, he did the Frog song.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. You know, they were quite pleasant songs, but not of any great standing. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Exactly right. Now, we're going to do, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow, the warm-up show from 1 to 4 in the afternoon ahead of the FA Cup final, which is a 5:30 kick-off on Saturday.
Yes.
But what about this story that we didn't quite get into about how the threat level is now critical, and Wembley security has been described as a shambles?
Yeah.
Because we've now got Arsenal cancelling the showing of the game at the Emirates, because they were going to show on a big screen. You know, they're going to let another load of people coming in.
Well, I didn't realise
they've cancelled that. Chelsea have now cancelled their victory parade. Now, you and I spent a lot of time yesterday saying, you know, obviously life has to go on.
Yeah.
You can't cancel everything. Stuff must go on, even if it is difficult to police. But, I mean, I was watching Cressida Dick, who's now in charge of the Metropolitan Police, on the news last night. And she said, you know, we will obviously attempt to risk assess everything that is going on, and we will obviously attempt to make sure that everything can go ahead.
Yeah.
But it's not out of the question, I would say, that they'll suddenly turn around and go, do you know what? I think we'll just cancel it.
What, the FA Cup final?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they will.
I mean, I know that would be a massive thing to do,
Yeah.
and a hugely complicated decision to make.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it seems to me that they may be laying the groundwork for it.
Well, they would have a duty to cancel that game if they came across a piece of specific intelligence evidence which said we think there's going to be an attack on the crowd at Wembley Stadium. They'd have to cancel the game.
They would.
And they have to flood the area with... by the way, I'm glad to see soldiers on the streets in Britain. I haven't got this fear that people have about, it's the start of, a takeover by the military and all that.
I've heard people saying all day in the last 24 hours, this is not the Britain that I'm used to.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, get used to it, buddy boy.
Exactly.
Because, when I walk through Grand Central Station in New York City, and I'm not talking about during 9/11.
No.
I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
There are people stationed at every exit with army gear on and machine guns.
That's right, absolutely.
And you're quite happy to see that.
To protect society. And the point is, if you can free up policemen to do the policeman's job, and soldiers are far more trained, far better trained to respond to an act of aggression than a policeman.
Yeah.
Because a policeman's nature is not that of an aggressive, proactive military person, which a soldier is. But they would only cancel it if they felt there was job. And the unspoken horror which we're dealing with in Manchester is that particular concert and that particular venue was targeted because it was full of teenage girls enjoying dressing up like Western girls do and watching a Western woman perform Western music. That's not happening at Wembley. Wembley is a football match.
True.
So it's the vast majority of people there are going to be men.
Yes, that's true too.
Sadly, these vile fanatics don't think anything of targeting little girls, young ladies, teenagers as their targets.
No, I get that, but equally,
as their victims.
Equally, I mean, if there is a terror cell, and as they've said before, they believe the man who made the bomb, or the person or persons who made the bomb are still at large, and possibly making other bombs.
Yes,
there's any number of possibilities as to what they would target next.
Sure.
But going back to what you were saying about the army, yesterday they made a big thing of replacing the police around the Palace of Westminster.
That's right.
With army regiment instead.
Yeah, army personnel.
Now, again, I mean, for me, that is what they should be doing. I mean, when you go to Buckingham Palace, the army are there. When you go to the White House, the army, they're guarded by the Marines. If the police, don't forget, could not stop a guy running at them with a knife.
No.
And he managed to kill one of the police officers there.
That's right, yeah.
Now, if a guy does that same thing again and starts running at these army guys with a knife, he won't get very far.
That's right.
And so, in many ways, that's what they have to do, isn't it?
Yeah, of course they do. What they're saying here, by the way, looking at this report that you're referring to, is that, basic things like people coming in and out of the stations that serve Wembley, massive congestion. Now... do you want to get onto this sort of subject? But we know if you come out of Wembley Park Station, which is an underground station, to get to the Wembley Stadium, you go under a tunnel.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of you go under a road, basically, don't you?
It's a long tunnel. And, I mean, it is the sort of territory where if an explosion took place there, it would be utterly devastating because of the enclosed space in which you're walking and that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And you're then, into a bowl of 100,000 people.
Yeah.
So it is a very, it's a very, I'm not going to say vulnerable because all big crowds, I suppose, are vulnerable. But, I mean, what I'm saying is, to a fanatic who was looking... And they do look for a lot of people in the same place at one time. It's an obvious target, isn't
it?
Yeah.
I know there are many of them over the course of the next few weeks, so we'll just have to see how it all plays out, I suppose.
Yeah.
Hopefully it all goes ahead. And, as we were talking to Mark Bosnich earlier on, Chelsea are in with a chance of making a double happen.
Yeah.
Because now, as I said before about Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, you're basically looking at a situation where one of them is going to want to be crowned manager of the year.
Yes.
I think Jose Mourinho now fancies himself as being manager of the year.
No,
because of what he's done.
Well, above winning the Premier League.
Yeah.
Well, it has happened before.
Yeah, because he's taken a team, and I know that they finished sixth instead of fifth, but he's taken a team which was not thought to be particularly brilliant.
Yeah.
I know that people say, but they spent a load of money. But, he's basically got Manchester United back into the Champions League.
Yeah, he has,
Which was looked like an incredibly difficult thing to do in September of last year.
That's right. Amazingly, David Moyes, who stood down from Sunderland on the same day as the League Managers Association dinner.
Did he go to that?
He went to it.
Did he?
But he'd won it twice before.
Right.
And he never won the Premier League title, but you're absolutely right, because he did so well one year getting Everton into the Champions League, and on another year, getting them right up there and getting to the FA Cup final and all that. He twice won the Manager of the Year award, So it doesn't always go...
Speaking of Everton, by the way, I see there's a piece in the Mirror saying that Everton are now looking to ask about 50 million quid for Ross Barkley.
Yes.
Because that still hasn't resolved itself.
No, it hasn't resolved itself, no. Well, I mean, that's what you always do, isn't it? You know, you put a big price on it and test the waters, see whether anybody wants to buy him or not. I don't see an awful lot of interest in
I don't either.
people buying Ross Barkley.
No.
I mean, Spurs are not making huge noises.
No,
they were supposed to be the favourites.
Manchester United not making huge noises about it.
No, that's right. The Lukaku situation.
But what about this whole, you've got until the end of the week to decide whether you want to play for Everton and all that.
They extended
that was
the
last
deadline.
week,
They extended the deadline.
See, that never looks good.
But I thought they extended the deadline to Tuesday of this week, so it looks like it's been extended again. I agree with you. It never looks good. And it's a very, in my mind, very unfortunate situation when a player has made noises about not wanting to stay. The club has said, well, make your mind up. He doesn't want to make his mind up, but the club don't show enough resolve to say, well, we'll make your mind up for you then.
Yes.
You're out. You know what I mean? But, I mean, whether you can afford to do that with a player of Ross Barkley's quality or not, I do not know.
Indeed. Here's one from Davies who says, this summer I'm running an experiment. I will watch TV according to Lel Planko's recommendations.
Right.
Please wish me luck.
Yeah, good, yeah.
And Kenny says, now Porky's sorted with his TV viewing, will he please review some decent shows, i.e. House of Cards, Breaking Bad, Boardwalk Empire, etc.?
Yeah.
Well, there's that great film or series coming up called Riviera, which you might be able to start
It's coming
watching.
out on June the 15th.
Is it?
And the amazing thing is, I thought, I wonder what night of the week it's on. It's not. It says June 15 series, i.e., I don't know how many episodes there are. There's 10, say.
Well, say there's 10 or 12.
They're all available on June the 15th.
Well, House of Cards launches, I believe, this weekend coming. I'm not sure if it's Friday or Saturday night. But this will be
the new series of House of Cards.
The new series of House of Cards. But don't watch that, because you've got to watch the first two.
Well, exactly.
So but you don't have to watch it, because the point is this is now going to revolutionise your television
And it's
viewing.
going to be on box set if I want it anyway.
Well, the point is you can go and watch any number of the episodes.
I can call it down, so to speak.
Well, it's just there.
Yeah.
So there's nothing you have to do.
Right,
You can stream it, you can watch it live,
Wow.
as but the first episode I think will air Friday or Saturday, but then you can watch them all.
It's excellent.
Which is amazing. But Riviera, I was reading a piece over the weekend in GQ magazine, of all things, was put together by the former manager of U2.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
A guy who spent 35 years melding sort of U2's career and making them the richest rock band in the history of rock and roll.
Right, yeah.
750 million was the last tour money gross that they made.
Yes.
Thanks to him.
I
think McGuinness, his name is it?
I think it's McGuinness. And funny enough, I read a review. In fact, I've got a review of U2's first concert and their new world tour.
Oh, this is the Joshua Tree, right?
Yeah, the Joshua Tree.
Yeah, because they've started, I think they've kicked it off already in California.
They have, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I had the review of the first one here. Gig of the week.
Yeah.
Century Link Field, Seattle.
Right.
So it wasn't California.
Yeah, it started on the West Coast, I know that.
That's right, yeah. And it says here, what does it say? U2 give us exactly what we're looking for. And I still haven't found... Now then, you might be in big...
hang on. So they actually have found what they're looking for. That's what the guy's saying.
Yes, but I'm saying the song is... And I still
I know that,
haven't found...
Which is from the Joshua
what
Tree.
you're looking for.
What I'm looking for.
Now then, you better get on to your mate, because the Joshua Tree Tour 2017 arrives at Twickenham Stadium, London, on July 8 and 9.
Well, I'm hoping to see them in Dublin, actually.
Dublin?
Yeah. They're playing Croke Park.
You haven't mentioned this to me.
Yeah, I have.
When are we going over?
What do you mean we? I'm not taking you. I'm taking my mother of my children.
What?
Who's a massive U2 fan. Why would I be taking you?
Well, this is a collaboration, this.
What do you mean it's a collaboration?
Well, we talk to the group's producer all the time on the radio. He's a big fan of ours.
Steve Lillywhite is a big fan of ours. In fact, we'll be talking to him. He's a big fan of Chelsea. We'll be talking to him on FA Cup Day.
Excuse me, I know we will.
Yeah.
But he's a fan of ours. He's not just a fan of yours.
Well, he's a fan of mine initially. He's a fan of ours. He's a friend of mine because I've met him now in New York. What makes you think that he's a friend of yours?
He wouldn't let you just go off to a U2 concert on your own. I'm bound to be invited.
Well, it's not a question of being invited.
It is a question of being invited. No. You can't go off to U2 and get a VIP ticket behind the scenes without me being there.
I went to see U2 when they were here at the O2 the last time they played in London.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but that was just as a...
No, I went with the mother of my children.
That was just as a punter in the crowd.
No, it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't.
What do you mean?
I went as a what you might... I'm not calling it a VIP guest.
Yeah.
I mean, I was able to get a ticket. Thanks
well, all right.
Steve.
Well, the mother of your children's already seen them then.
So I should abandon her and take you? Have you lost the plot completely?
No, I need to be in on this trip.
Have you seen the time?
I want to be on this trip.
Stop shouting. This is Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV. How about this from Stuart, who's seen the picture of you in your shorts? He says he legitimately looks like a postman.
Well, I've got nothing against postmen. I think postmen are good people.
Yeah.
So I take that as a compliment. Thank you very much indeed.
Mick says I've seen better legs on a coffee table.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Peter
Well,
says,
I'm not in a beautiful long-legged look at my calf type competition.
Beautiful long-legged look at my calf type competition.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you are. What time does a daytime shirt turn into a nighttime shirt? I'm just curious.
I would say about 5 o'clock.
5 p.m.